6 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Good evening, Chicago, and welcome to another Friday night edition of Chicago Corner. Sorry for the late start. I'll give you an explanation in a moment after I introduce my co-host, Mr. Ed Heller. Ed, what do you get? What do you get when you decide to heat up a slice of pizza before the program and it's wired on the same circuit as your air conditioner?
You get a not so happy time right before the show.
You get a blown fuse. You get a blown fuse in the basement, which means you got to run down the stairs on crutches, push the button, get back upstairs, wait for your router to reset. All because I just wanted to heat up, microwave one sliver of pizza to have for dinner since I haven't eaten today. So that's just, I guess, I don't know, cost of doing business tonight.
Oh, that's great. That's
hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah. So then a thing to add to your list of things to do: relocate the fuse box upstairs or the breakers.
Oh, yeah, if I could afford that. But let's do a little test. I turned off my network monitor for a little snitch. Let's see if that solves the delay issue.
If you'll please pardon the interruption, it seems as if we're experiencing some technical difficulties here.
Hey, you, what's up? What's up? What's happening, baby? Huh?
Well, that was
it.
Bad.
No, that was it. The mute, I automatically came back. So, now, God, okay. Ed, we're on all cylinders now. Now we know we got every last bug worked out in this old jalopy of a starship.
Let's not jinx it though, Jerry.
We call the Starship Chicago Corner
because the night is young.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
Yeah, so if you're just joining us, welcome to Chicago Corner. It's Jerry's night to shine.
Is it? We both shine.
Well, I mean, I shine naturally. You can kind of see on my forehead here.
Yeah, got really hot in here after I was rushing around to get the show started. But thank you for that. How's your week been? How's everyone's week been out there? Actually, before we talk about ourselves, let's greet who's joined us tonight in live chat. We've got Kathy Powers. Yeah, Kathy, I had an excuse. I had a very, very good explanation, Kathy, for why, unfortunately, we started a little bit late tonight. And that was, hey, get out of here. Wait, what just happened? Are you muted, Ed?
I don't know what happened there unless Oreo hit the keyboard.
No, I was trying to pull up the Tuesday clip tab so that I could give.
Yeah, because I wasn't anywhere near the buttons when the breaking news just started playing out of nowhere.
You know what? He did walk across the keyboard, so I do think that. Yeah, I think as I was trying to drop the tab, but Kathy, hey, look.
I ran out of gas. I had a flat tire. I didn't have enough money for cab fare. My truck didn't come back from the cleaners. An old friend came in from out of town. Someone stole my car. There was an earthquake. A
true. Sorry,
Yeah.
Kathy, to keep you waiting.
Like
What, an extra 8 minutes? How many times has Kathy come to the program? Like, an hour in after she's finally gotten home, but she wants us to start on time all the time.
Look, Jerry, she's excited to watch this show, so I'm not gonna falter for that. I'm always looking forward to watching this show, even when I'm on it.
Glad someone is.
So I'm just gonna keep a quick eye on that when we play the reactions, just to see how long it takes, for the microphone to come back. Because right now it looked like maybe half a second, a quarter second, and that might be normal.
That's completely normal. I think that is absolutely completely normal. So let's see who else has joined us tonight. We got Kathy. We got, as always, Arturo. Welcome, my friend. We've got Miguel H. Happy Friday indeed. Who else is down in here? That Where Pilgrims checked in. That's we've got checked into the live chat. We got 8 viewers that I can see here on StreamYard. Hopefully more on Twitter. And
nobody commenting on Rockfin yet.
Yes.
We know a few people like to watch on there from time to time.
Yeah. So, and of course, we've got our stream cat Oreo here sniffing at my pizza slice I've got on the desk while walking around it and the keyboard, and now he's going to nudge the camera. There you go. All right. Can you figure out where you're going to sit? All right. So I wanted to tell you, Ed, I put in a good word for you with a friend of mine who owns a pizza joint. I said, I don't know if there's any opportunity for networking here, but my friend Ed is the king of pizza and deep dish pizza here in Chicago. Here's his website. Do you think that there's an opportunity for any, connection? Let me know. I told my friend. So,
I appreciate that. Thank you, Jerry.
You're very welcome.
I can use any kind of networking connections I can get right now for new opportunities, because I'm, always looking to expand. And Kathy says, "It's not my show, Jerry. I would probably be on time."
Okay. Why don't you come over and help me produce it then and run down the stairs?
To be fair, he was in the studio.
Yeah.
He was there.
Yep. I was here.
But, a fuse was blown.
Can't win.
And, I know when people say Jerry blew a fuse, they don't usually mean like one in his home.
Wait, what did you just say? All right, we've got Snork Y2K joining us. Fine New York pizza with ham and pineapple. That actually sounds just as good. All right.
I'm just kidding because of all the internet problems that that enrage both of us, actually. But
they're hopefully all behind us now.
Yeah. I got home and my internet was lousy as hell. I rebooted my router or my gateway immediately. I was like 12 megabits down. That's not going to work for me. And then the upstream,
well, not that I owe anybody an explanation, but I reset my computer at 7:00 and I tested my camera and I had my lights on, everything. Took my shower, got all cleaned up, came back to the computer about 7:25, getting ready to start. Threw this in the oven, the microwave for a minute. Boom! All of my pre-show setup was for naught because the fuse blew because it's on the same circuit as my air conditioner.
Oh, so by the way, before we get rolling, I just wanted to mention one of our shared acquaintances, Brian, who just moved out of the U.S. and is going to be living in New Zealand. Sent a screenshot recently on social media of his internet over there. And it was like 500 megabits down and 450 megabits up. And that was just the standard internet that they have there, which most people say it's okay, but it could be better. So when you guys are talking about internet here in the US, it's terrible. It's lousy. They're ripping us off.
I think I had a bone in the pizza. Anyway, I got a solicitation this week. I don't know, break a tooth. I got a solicitation this week from Comcrap Excrement to the business owner at Chicago Corner LLC to try to pitch me on upgrading my internet because we're a business, because we can afford to pay more. Anyway, I just thought it was so funny that they're like, that's a
They
moment
just want
where
more money.
Yeah, we should call them on the phone and say, we should all be getting high-speed internet, assholes. You shouldn't be making people pay for more when we know what happens in other countries, like the example that our friend Brian sent back regarding his upstream and downstream. Other countries, other countries have got bullet trains. We're still working with Civil War technology with our safety systems on our trains, which is what causes horrible disasters like what happened in Ohio last year or earlier this year. It's earlier this year.
Yeah, Fred Edward is not a fan of microwaving food. Fred, there are ways to make microwaves work for you. And as far as pizza goes, I actually have ideas on that. Most of it involves using, getting a spray bottle with water for most things that you microwave, but especially for pizza. And what you do is you wrap your slice in baking parchment. You spray a little water on top of the slice before you wrap it. You heat it for maybe a minute and a half in the microwave. But then here's the trick. If you got a toaster oven or a regular oven, you finish it off to crisp it up in the oven.
See what you started, Fred?
That was as fast as I could possibly describe how to do that. That's my trick for reheating your pizzas fast.
Unfortunately, I didn't have the time before the show to do all that.
Sure.
Yeah,
and Jerry doesn't have a toaster oven yet.
Yeah.
I got to get you one of those, buddy.
Where'd the bone come from? I think it may have been in the sausage. That's what she said. Anyway, so it's actually been an interesting week for news.
Yeah.
As I was looking through what you shared on Slack and as I've monitored what's happened with Trump being indicted again, like it's going to stick this time. But Ed and I have been talking off show about the fact we're coming up on Brandon Johnson's first 100 days. I believe it's going to be by August 21st
or something. It's
like
2 weeks from now, I think.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now, he'll reach his first 100 days. And I think what I'm registering as one of his first major controversies. Is it really? I don't know. I mean, what we saw with this group of 40 teenagers deciding they were going to go rob a 7-Eleven. I was kind of shocked that, I mean, we'll go more into it in the video, but when someone used the expression mob action, they didn't mean mafia mob. They meant a mob gathered, and it was a mob action. I would disagree with Mayor Johnson that this was a gathering of people, okay? I understand how sensitive he wants to be to the larger issues of what causes this shit and how people are so quick to broad stroke and, use this as an example of why you got to start cracking skulls and increase police presence on the streets. But why don't we go to the video first that I have in the show notes, Ed, to share what happened this week so we can kind of unwrap it.
Okay.
Also at 4:30, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson opening up on everything from the migrant crisis to teen takeovers.
Since he took office in May, he hasn't fielded questions from reporters very often. Among those asking them today, CBS 2 political investigator Dana Kozlov. And Dana, Mayor Johnson spent about an hour talking with the press.
Yeah, Jim and Marie, and the most recent incident of teenagers and young adults converging and overwhelming on one area of the city was a big topic of conversation. It just happened this past weekend, and in that instance, they caused a lot of damage. The mayor responded this way, though, when someone characterized it as mob action.
Pause it for a moment.
That's not appropriate. We're not talking about mob actions. I didn't say
that was a lot of the reporters' priorities, especially William Kelly, who used to harass Lori Lightfoot, rightfully so, all the time. So much of the chatter I'm seeing on social media is from white journalists, pro-cop white journalists who just cannot get enough of this. With everything else happening in the city, all I want to talk about is Brandon Johnson not putting on his Christopher Reeve Superman outfit.
They're just looking to stir up. They're just looking to stir up controversy. I should mention that just today in New York, there was a huge gathering of teens. Like, they were covering it live because some Twitch streamer, who has like 6.5 million followers on his Twitch channel, was doing an PS5 giveaway or something, and thousands of teens descended into like one location, and the police in New York, who typically are known to be about as brutal as the Chicago cops are when it comes to tamping down like large mobs of people, or kettling and all this other stuff. They apparently dialed it back several notches to try and de-escalate, and I was like, what? New York is doing that?
What a happy surprise. Well, one of the follow-up articles I'm going to talk about after we've listened to the press conference was how Johnson he congratulated, or he appreciated that the Chicago Police Department did not escalate, that they did handle it with a more even-handed measures. So let's go back to the video, though. I did see that story today. Yeah.
That. Okay, what I'm
rewind it a little
second. Okay. Mob actions. I didn't say that.
This way, though, when someone characterized it as mob action.
That's not appropriate. We're not talking about mob actions. I didn't say that. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, respectfully, these large gatherings, just hold on a second, y'all. I promise you, we have time to talk. It's important that we speak of these dynamics in an appropriate way. This is not to obfuscate what is actually taking place.
This was the scene near Roosevelt.
This is what shocks me, Ed. He's a teacher. Has he never heard the expression mob action? That's what we're seeing in the video. And that's how it can fairly be described. I thought that it was, I know, again, he wants to be sensitive to what's going on, but this basically opened up the door. It opened up the door for all of these knucklehead critics who want to see the police cracking skulls start complaining about making
but also what it is you get people who are just looking to get the worst possible soundbite out of him, and so he's being, I would say, overly careful about the words that he uses, the words that he acknowledges that are being used by the reporters asking questions.
Well,
again, I think, as a teacher, you're right. He should just be acknowledging that the term, the word mob in this context is not being used in, what would it be? In a reductive way, in just a descriptive way.
I just forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, when I want to interject when we're talking about something, just let me get my thought out, because now we've gone out. It's just frustrating. Worst possible soundbite. National media has picked up on this, and they're calling this moment he's going woke. How? I don't know. Anything that you disagree with is suddenly woke. They're claiming that this is him condoning what happened by not, I guess, embracing the description that this was a mob action. This was not just a gathering of people. I mean, I'm going to share right now
he's not going to win no matter what he says or how he responds, because they're always going to try to twist it.
Well, we're going to get more into the fallout from this, and let me share what I found on social media that I'm talking about here specifically before we go back into the video. I mean, this is what being too sensitive and worrying about everybody else gets you. It basically gives ammunition to your critics, because this is my search term: Brandon Johnson mob, and at the top, reporter William Kelly. Oof, this is embarrassing. Mayor Brandon Johnson apparently doesn't understand that mob action is a legitimate legal term that perfectly describes actually was more than, I completely misread the numbers, the 300 to 400 youths who destroyed a 7-Eleven this weekend. It doesn't mean that we're calling them descendants of Big Al Capone. Or members of the mafia. Okay, so that's okay. And I'll say, as much as I'm no fan of William Kelly, he makes a point there, right?
Yeah.
Then we've got Twitter account End Wokeness. as if this has nothing to do with being woke. So everybody like grabbing the word woke and using it to identify anything you don't like just blows my mind. Here's another one. Far left enabler does not like referring to mobs of young black thugs looting and vandalizing his mobs. All right, well, stop with the thugs. Save America, restore liberty. JJ Pesavento, this new mayor of Chicago needs to pull his head out of his snowflake ass. Here's another one. Woke Mayor Johnson offended by media usage of mob went over 400. Again, isn't it interesting how many white people love to use the word thugs when they're describing a mob that happens to?
Yeah, it's like when they decide they want to point out how he shouldn't really have an issue with the word mob while they use all the other dog whistles in the same tweet.
Right.
And
so
in this case, I say other just because they're using it because now they know that he is sensitive to it.
The reason I referenced the number 40 was there were over 40 arrests after 400 people after 400 people gathered to destroy the 7-Eleven. Chicago has been grappling with large gatherings of teenagers engaging in disruptive teen takeovers. These episodes often culminate in violence, yet the city's new leftist mayor, Brandon Johnson, finds it inappropriate to label these groups as a mob. All right, so I don't want to go through too much more of the social media stuff on Twitter, but, Mayor Johnson, stop. We understand, okay, I understand, Ed, I think you understand, that he has pretty much laid out the groundwork that, while you cannot condone this, accept it, or coddle it, there's a long, far-reaching generational dynamic in place here, which is why you've got a lot of kids, unfortunately, that aren't coming from homes where parents who know better are teaching them better. So what's the solution? More cops? Is that going to solve things? No. Again, how often do we talk about this? You need to reallocate resources to start dealing with this, and it's not going to happen 100 days into his administration. Okay? Well, I think that this was unfortunately a rookie fumble for him. Yeah. The way that all of these predominantly white journalists are seizing on this moment to use it as their reason that you need to increase police presence and you need to start cracking heads, in complete denial or indifference to the root causes that we're talking about here. They're using this as their opportunity to I don't know what, get on their soapboxes. This is why we needed Paul Vallis, because he was going to put more cops on the streets, as if more cops on the streets would have prevented this. No. And
no, but they're going to keep throwing that line out there because it's low-hanging fruit to do it.
Yeah. At least the police were able to de-escalate this and not, perhaps in what's the word, escalated to a degree where it became a little bit more unmanageable and potentially more tragic. So, I have to say, I do agree that I agree with journalists that are not using this as their linchpin to criticize him, that it was a mob action, not mafia. When you've got people engaging in criminal, violent behavior like this, it's a mob action. And you need to stop tiptoeing around it when we understand that as a mayor, he's looking to get to the root causes and get to the ways to deal with this. Although it's not, everybody expects this to happen overnight. He's going to come in, he's going to address the root causes, and it's all going to go away overnight. No, it's not.
No.
This is generations of neglect, generations of abandonment that is going to probably take another generation maybe to get on track if people have the patience to let what Johnson has proposed move forward in dealing with these communities. Too many people are impatient and think it's all going to happen overnight with more cops. It's not. Let's go back to the Channel 2 News video and continue that. Back it up just a little bit, though.
Okay.
This is not to obfuscate what is actually taking place.
This was the scene near Roosevelt and Canal Sunday night. Groups looted a convenience store. More than 36 teenagers were arrested, along with a 12-year-old and at least one 20-year-old. Store owners say it was the second such incident in that area in just the past few weeks. And today, Mayor Johnson commended Chicago police for the way they handled it.
To the best of their ability, I believe that they attempted to engage with our young people, with community partners, giving as much warning as they possibly could. And, unfortunately, arrests, were made, and unfortunately, some damage was caused. And the level of sensitivity and patience that our officers expressed, I'm appreciative of that.
Mayor Johnson says his administration continues to work with community groups, adding they've actually intercepted and prevented some of those large gatherings, meaning if they hadn't, the city would have seen more of them. But he didn't give any specific dates or times and when those were prevented.
Okay.
All right. So here's an example of what I'm talking about, how, the snarky a-holes on Twitter decide this is their moment to just pick at something like, that shit to make their point. I mean, here, the irony of this particular tweet, Ed, was not lost on me. This particular social media account actually addressed what we're talking about while also completely dismissing and ignoring it. Let me add this to the stream. This comes from the Chicago Authoritarian. He starts out sad, just heartbreaking, talking about another incident. This video is another tragic reminder of how disinvestment, trauma, poverty, insufficient affordable housing, and underfunded schools have transformed these two young men into baby Al Capones. So, yeah, can you sense the snark in that? It's like he's ignoring the stuff we're talking about that actually does contribute to this, so that he can get in his jab that these are baby Al Capones. No one's condoning.
He's piling on to the whole mob thing.
Right. That's all this account does on social media. And I think this is a big problem with what we see in Chicago. This guy never offers any, and accounts like his never offer any solutions. They just want more cops cracking heads, escalating stuff, which
that's their solution.
I've responded to many times, like, what's your solution? Crickets. What's your other solution to many of his tweets regarding many things he's critical of? Crickets. He just wants to engage in peddling fear porn here in Chicago because, a black guy won and Paul Vallis had to go back to Palos Heights.
Oh, yeah. Although where exactly is Paul Vallis these days?
He's been engaging on social media, throwing in his 2 cents here and there where nobody really cares or gives a shit, or editorializing for the Chicago Tribune. So I found this kind of funny, despite the fact, let me see if I get this next link up. I thought I'd open it. Oh yeah, here we go. So kudos to Mayor Johnson for giving the police credit where it was due in regards to de-escalating the situation, hopefully preventing what could have been more violence. Give me a moment, guys.
You need me to get some tabs up?
Well, it's the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 7 tab. I think I've got it. I've got it up here. All right, hang on.
Okay.
I got it here. Okay, so just have no idea how quickly it's going to load. So you've got Mayor Johnson in a moment of appreciation to the Chicago police, saying, "Hey, man, you guys handled it right," but that's just not good enough. The cops who promised blood on the streets and promised that they were going to rank and file all, leave and quit their jobs because Paul Vallis didn't win, posted, "Sad that Chicago's mayor chose to skip National Night Out, an event that enhances the relationship between laborers and law enforcement while bringing back a true sense of community. Yet another missed opportunity by Mayor Johnson." Now, Gregory Pratt reported, asked why he didn't go to the National Night Out police event. Mayor Johnson says his schedule is so full, some people think there's a body double doing some of his appearances. Then he indicates that's a joke. Don't tweet that. Says he's in community every day. He is in community every day.
Yeah,
we've been watching. He's everywhere. I don't know how some of our elected representatives are able to be everywhere as they are. But and he gave credit to the police department, but all of those that didn't even want to see him mayor, wow, he didn't come to our events.
Yeah, although if memory serves, I think that he was at the Cubs game that night. But I have a few thoughts on this. Look, the National Night Out, again, you guys have described it as something that enhances the relationship between neighbors and law enforcement. You wanted to use the mayor as a crutch for that.
Well,
that's not on him. It's not on him.
They wanted to use his absence as a way to somehow prove he condones all this activity and he's not interested in reducing violence or addressing crime. That's what they're doing here.
Okay. I mean, there's definitely that angle, and you're right. But I think it's not on Mayor Johnson for the police to start rehabilitating their image with the neighbors they're supposed to serve and protect. The communities need you guys to start paying attention to all of the reforms that you guys have been ignoring for years. All the things that you're supposed to be doing that you're not. All the things that communities have complained about that what's it called? I can't remember. My brain isn't working. It's the thing that they passed, the ordinance. Someone in the chat will probably remind me, but sorry, my brain has short.
No, I'm letting you catch up. I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, I know what that's like myself. So, like, giving you a moment to, if you have need a moment.
It's the. Sorry, that portion of my memory is completely fritzed out right now. It's the.
All right. Well, in the meantime, while you think of that, can you bring up the tab on the Chicago Tribune? Johnson defends his response.
Hold on, the Tribune one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want the image up while I share what.
Okay, I thought we were done with that one. Hold on a second.
No, because this goes into more detail. This was reported by Ellison and Gregory Pratt at the Chicago Tribune. Mayor Brandon Johnson defends the response to teen gatherings and the migrant crisis. My administration is different.
Okay.
Mayor Brandon Johnson on Wednesday defended his unique approach to uplifting Chicago's youth and continuing to welcome migrants, two demographics the new administration has pledged to support amid criticism that the city's response has been lacking. In a sprawling one-hour news conference, Johnson stressed that the Chicago police order to arrest dozens during a large teen gathering last weekend in the South Loop was constitutional and compassionate. It was his first such session with reporters in 2 weeks, and the new mayor strove to walk a fine line between his campaign ideals and radical change and the reality of assuming the office of chief executive. Police made the 40 arrests Sunday evening as large groups of youths refused to disperse after fighting and storming a convenience store near West Roosevelt Road and South Canal Street. The move to begin locking up teens at about 9:20 p.m. reflected a more decisive style from police leaders than in previous gatherings this summer, but Johnson underscored that the cops attempted to engage with our young people with community partners, giving as much warning as they possibly could. So, yeah, they didn't escalate. They responded. They de-escalated. They made the arrests where they needed to. So to all of these knuckleheads on social media and Twitter still complaining, what more did you want? He's commending the police for the way that they handled it and how they should have handled it, which to everything I'm reading was the correct response. They couldn't be there to stop it or prevent it from happening. It was a response. It was a responsive action. So again, to everybody on social media, all of these predominantly white critics, as far as I'm seeing them, carrying on that, it's not enough and he condones it. It's like, he doesn't condone it. He congratulated CPD for handling and de-escalating it the right way, and there were 40 arrests. What did you expect? For them to go in with fucking flamethrowers and just take all 400 members of this mob action out? Literally, it's like the cops responded. That's what they want. That's bingo. That's what they want. They want to see everybody mowed down as violently because this is not rooted from logic, Ed. Now, it's authoritarian. It's authoritarianism. It's been many, many, many years since the Chicago sports team won a major series, right? But when they have, what did we see? We saw white people turning over cars. We saw mob action in the streets. We saw violence. We saw property damage. I don't remember any journalists back then. Maybe they're not around anymore, the same journalists back then, but I don't remember the response in the public being, where are the cops? Why aren't the cops like cracking more heads? No, we had to celebrate the Bulls. We had to celebrate that's when it's okay, but it's also predominantly white mob action at the time. So I guess my point of all this to everybody, and I'm not sure if the constitutional conservative is watching to chime in, that I'm race baiting here, making this all about race. It's not all about race. It is about race, because there are certain factions that want to see more punitive, more destructive action taken against people of color than they would be comfortable with being taken against white people. If that's horrible to say, I'm not backing off from it, because to me, history has shown there is more concern with taking down a mob of people of color than a mob of white people in Chicago. Unless you're a white protester, at the the G5 summit many years ago, or the Occupy Wall Street protesters back in the late 2010, I think it was. No, it was around 2007, 2008. What does Arturo share?
The term I was thinking of was the consent decree. I don't know why my brain short-circuited on that. But that's the thing that they're supposed to be, going under, and apparently they had been dragging their feet on actually following through with all the elements of it. And for Mayor Johnson to have to hold their hand while they get up to speed on that, I think would be a bad idea. That's why I think that when they complain or lament that Mayor Johnson didn't show up to their national night out, it's clearly it's disingenuous, but also it's damaging to their own department that they can't find a way to fix their own problem there.
When people were comfortable with white protesters getting their heads cracked? When they showed up to protest the Columbus statue. Priorities. Yeah, Kathy, you're right. I remember when CPD knocked out Miracle Boyd's front teeth at the Columbus statue. That was an escalation, if I ever saw one. So really quickly, just wrapping up the rest of the article, Johnson continued, that's a unique approach. Many people expect us to treat people undignified. My administration is different. Unfortunately, arrests were made. Unfortunately, some damage was caused. And the level of sensitivity and patience that our officers expressed, I'm appreciative of that. That is constitutional. That is a system of care. Does anybody disagree with that? After we just went through the details, 40 people arrested, they de-escalated it. They dealt with the crowd in as humane a manner as they could, given the violence and what was happening.
Yeah.
Large youth gatherings. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, and it goes toward the whole, he's being extremely rational about this, and so obviously there's people who just wanted to crack heads who aren't still not going to be okay with it.
They're reactionary, because that's their go-to is crack heads, be violent, be punitive.
Otherwise they're never going to learn.
Right. Well, maybe not, but you can't broad stroke it. And that's the fairness that I like about Mayor Johnson, as much as I still think he completely fumbled on making some stupid issue about the use of the phrase mob action, when that's exactly what it was. It was a mob action, not mafia, not organized crime. It was a mob. 400 people is a mob. Large youth gatherings downtown have vexed Chicago police and other city leaders for the last decade, often springing up via social media flyers during warm summer months and sometimes turning violent. The mayor, who despite pushback has continued to vow that he will never demonize youth, and that's one of the many things I like about him, because all of these other people want a broad stroke and be like, oh, curfews, oh, arrests, oh, crack heads, oh, get out your flamethrowers. Yeah, there are some bad kids out there. And unfortunately, there are a lot of kids who are followers, who don't know any better. and are raised and come from different circumstances and experiences that those of us who are lucky to have parents who taught us right from wrong, they don't have that. So here's the other problem I see, Ed, and this is interesting, point of conversation, is that something I learned many years ago is, I would often reflect on how I would do things and be very disappointed and upset when disappointment hit me on something because somebody didn't do something in a way I expected, because I try to do things as fairly and equitably as I can. So, when someone lets you down or disappoints you, whether it's malicious or non-malicious, the expectation and the disappointment that you suffer is because of your experiences and how you look back on your past and how you would do things. What people lose sight of, nobody has each of our experiences. Out of this 400 member gathering, every kid in that 400 member gathering comes from a different background. One kid can from a household of parents who've suffered abuse themselves and don't know how to raise kids, which is why they don't know any better. Another kid can come from a good household with parents that did teach them right or wrong, but they want to be part of the group. Another kid can say, hey, this looks like a lot of fun, I'm going to participate in here with parents who might be neutral on teaching them right from wrong. Okay. There could have been some kids who got swept into this that didn't want to be part of this, the violence, but they were out there to gather with their friends, and it became something else. So I've just demonstrated 4 different types of experiences for 4 different type of kids who may have been there, right? Different experiences, none my own, because personally, from the way I was brought up, my parents would be like, the way I was raised, I wouldn't be anywhere that it could potentially erupt in violence, but that's my personal experience. So I would stay away from this. But you can't hold that standard over everybody else, because not everybody has the experiences of being raised and taught the way that we were. As so many of these people on these law and order authoritarians, and I'm not against law and order, okay? We have to have law and order. But again, it's a very punitive, authoritative. That idiot, the Chicago Contrarian, is mocking the things that Johnson has talked about needs to be addressed. And just kind of, mocking it, pushing it aside because those 2 kids that were caught on video were stealing catalytic converters without knowing what their circumstances are, not condoning it. But you're going to turn to crime. You're going to engage in desperate, unfortunately unlawful, illegal crimes. I bet if those kids had opportunities in their neighborhoods, if they didn't have schools closing on them, they had more mental health support, if they weren't living in a community that has had no investment, no job opportunities, no opportunities for any of these kids to discover who they were, unlike the rest of us, Ed, who did have those opportunities, they have a different life experience.
Yeah, or if they had free tickets to Lollapalooza.
If they what?
Or if they had free tickets to Lollapalooza.
I don't think free tickets to Lollapalooza is going to change anything. I'm talking about
I'm talking about money is what I mean there. Is that you got a whole bunch of kids who are currently enjoying the weekend downtown in Millennium Park and Grant Park, enjoying Lollapalooza because they or their parents were able to afford to buy them tickets to have a good, somewhat wholesome time at a series of concerts. And these kids didn't have that opportunity, I'm betting, if I had to guess.
I get your point. I don't know that giving them the tickets now would avert.
No.
I misunderstood. I get what you're saying.
But do you get my analogy here is that if they had better opportunities, alternatives to, hey, let's all meet up at a 7-Eleven. And I don't know if anybody said, let's all meet up at a 7-Eleven and rob it. I didn't get to see the text. They didn't text me. But, not cool to gather, and then the only things that you're able to do for fun is loot a place.
I'm not trying to be right or wrong about this because it's a very, very complicated situation.
No, I get it.
To everybody who carries on that all kids just need to be, rousted up, thrown in jail, criminal records without taking into account what you just said. Yeah, a lot of kids don't have the entitlement or opportunities or come from family backgrounds that might mold them better or differently, that's completely out of the equation for some people, unfortunately. And, you know, I was downtown earlier this week and kind of reflecting on the fact that, like, you know, once you go past University of Chicago, it's a completely different Chicago. We are the most segregated city in the world. It isn't, when they were talking about the tale of two cities during the election, that was no, you know, joke on words. Chicago really is two cities. And it is the haves and the have-nots. And the haves and the have-nots is generally divided on racial lines and neighborhood lines, where previous administrations have prioritized putting money in investment versus a new mayor who's like, well, we got to maybe change course on that because clearly, you know, that hasn't worked before. So we need to like reassess and course correct. And a lot of people don't like that because they're comfortable where they are, separate from the South or West Side neighborhoods and this segregated city. I was up in my parents' neighborhood up in Wilmette earlier this week, driving down my street to get over to the house to drop something off to my dad. And I saw an African-American guy walking down the street. And I was like, cool. There's like African-American people in Wilmette. I was also thinking, wouldn't it be cool if like you had white and black people on the block sharing the same space in a nice neighborhood? Anywhere. All neighborhoods should be nice. My point was that there shouldn't be a rough neighborhood with where too many people of color live, as opposed to a really safe. All neighborhoods should be safe. In which way it would promote more racial harmony, I think.
It even better it would be if it wouldn't be surprising for us to go, oh, hey, look, there's a black man. I'm like, no, that should just be, you know, it's just another person in the neighborhood. It shouldn't be a surprise, whether it's delightful or otherwise, for anyone to see someone enter a neighborhood and be surprised that a person of a certain skin tone happens to be roaming around your neighborhood. But I guess we're just not there yet in some places.
Do you know Senator Jay Bulworth had a solution?
We got Americans with families can't even buy a meal. Ask a brother who's been downsized if he's getting any deal. Or a white boy busting ass till they put him in his grave. He ain't got to be a black boy to be living like a slave. Rich people have always stayed on top by dividing white people from colored people. But white people got more in common with colored people than they do with rich people. We just got to eliminate them.
Eliminate?
Eliminate.
Who, rich people?
White people. Damn. Black people too. Brown people, yellow people. Get rid of them all. All we need is a voluntary, free-spirited, open-ended program of procreative racial deconstruction. Everybody just got to keep fucking everybody till they're all the same color. I think it's gonna take a while, but.
Thank you, Senator Bulworth.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a solution, I guess. That's basically, you know, it's like when you get to the year 8000 in that movie, The Time Machine, and then everybody's basically the same color.
Yeah.
Except for the Morlocks, because they moved underground and now they keep all the people who are above ground as livestock. Okay, so maybe not so great.
Wrapping up the Tribune article, large youth gatherings downtown evict Chicago police. I said that. The mayor, who despite pushback has continued to vow that he will never demonize youth, elaborated Wednesday that his administration has intercepted other attempts at large gatherings that could have been even more severe. That's interesting. That didn't come out in some of the news broadcasts I saw.
Well, no, because they de-escalated. Right. Why would that be news?
While also taking umbrage with the teams being described as a quote-unquote mob. That's not appropriate. We're not talking about mob actions, Johnson said. Yeah, we are. We have to be careful when we use language to describe certain behavior. Yeah, we do. And you're a teacher. There's a history in the city, and I mean to refer to children as like baby Al Capones is not appropriate. Okay, so mob action wasn't referring to them as baby Al Capones, although that's what the Chicago Contrarian decided to escalate it to. Then the mayor addressed another just as formidable task, caring for the more than 12,000 asylum seekers who've arrived in Chicago in the past year, despite an ongoing scramble for more funding and adequate shelter. But unlike his counterpart in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams, who recently warned migrants there is, quote, no guarantee of help there for them, Johnson reiterated Chicago's commitment to welcome all. Quote, I can't speak for his decision, but I certainly have used his, as well as Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass and Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner's experiences as a way to reflect on that very question. Johnson said when asked if Chicago would at some point actively discourage migrants from coming. And here's what I'm committed to. Honoring the law of being a sanctuary city and building systems of care that provide a pathway with dignity for individuals who are seeking refuge and hope here in the city of Chicago. But on thornier questions of the city's financial constraints in coping with the crisis, the mayor was less specific beyond noting, as far as the sustainability of this moment, we're going to need more support from the federal and state government. Unlike Adams and some Chicago aldermen, Johnson did not go as far as criticizing the White House. Well, how can he? He's hosting a convention here next year. And noted that he'd had conversations with President Melty Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and the city's congressional delegation. Johnson didn't say how much longer the city can fund migrant care with current resources, nor when all migrants currently awaiting shelter inside police stations will be moved out. He did say that the asylum seekers being moved out of the 1st District Police Station Tuesday in the South Loop, now we reported on this Tuesday, I think, was unrelated to the annual Lollapalooza music festival that is taking place this week in nearby Grand Park. Transitioning individuals out of police stations is still top of mind, the mayor said, before noting reports of migrants being cleared out of the 1st District with belongings being tossed was an inaccurate depiction of what happened. Didn't we see
kind
video?
of, but not kind of. We talked about this on Tuesday.
Yeah. He claims no one was moved out as a result of Lollapalooza. Okay, that might be true, but
although the timing,
so let me play devil's advocate. The timing, they've been trying to get stuff done slowly, and they have been moving migrants to shelters or other locations before Lollapalooza. So the timing of Lollapalooza is there. As for his claim that migrants being cleared out of the 1st District, belongings being tossed, an inaccurate depiction of what happened, I call bullshit. We saw what happened. We saw people's shit being thrown out. We didn't see, renting a U-Haul or something from Home Depot to follow the buses that were taking migrants elsewhere to help get their stuff to their destination with them.
I think that was explained on Tuesday as far as them being told to take the essentials and things that they needed, but they weren't going to be able to bring, the beds and the mattresses and stuff like that. Even so, I'm with you on this. They should have gotten some U-Hauls and said, look, we're going to get as many of your belongings as we can into these things and transport them over so that you don't have to lose the things that you have. Yeah. But that didn't happen.
Whose place is it to define what's essential to them when they came here with nothing?
Right.
Okay. And they threw shit out that they didn't have to throw out. Stuff that probably a lot of stuff that people donated, spent money out of their own pockets to help because the federal support is not there. So they threw away stuff that people needed without any consideration of understanding that everything is essential in helping these migrants, as well as everything should be essential in helping people.
And they shouldn't be wasting materials like that. And I still have an issue with the genius who thought it was a good idea to put a shopping cart into a trash compactor. That's dumb on many levels.
So Johnson said it's an inaccurate depiction of what happened. No one was moved as a result of Lollapalooza. We are transitioning people into shelters. As a city, do we want people living in police stations? Is that acceptable? Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott sent his first busload of asylum seekers north to Chicago in August of 2022, arguing sanctuary cities should take on more of the burden of caring for migrants crossing the U.S. border, while his city takes on no burden whatsoever. He's arguing sanctuary cities should take on the burden. Great, send some here, keep some there. Don't ship everybody out because you're a xenophobic bigot, Governor Abbott. Chicago officials have at times struggled to respond in a timely and efficient manner, and the situation escalated in recent months with the arrival of new buses and planes of migrants ramping up. As of now, hundreds of asylum seekers are still sleeping on police station floors, and thousands more are staying in a city-run makeshift shelters, which have been the subject of complaints ranging from safety concerns to moldy food. So anyway, that article goes on and on and on, but I think that these were major stories in relation to Johnson's upcoming 100 days, almost coming in the next couple weeks.
I just wanted to Google really quick to find out how many migrants are actually being sheltered in Texas right now. There are some. I'm seeing a result that says El Paso Times says there's this was from May 5th. It said migrants top 3,300 at El Paso Church homeless shelter.
How many?
Who knows? 3,300. Who knows how many of them might have been put on a bus since then? We don't know.
Johnson also took a question about a WBEZ report that Waller has investigated for domestic violence in the 1990s. Wait a minute. We're talking, I'm sorry, different subject. The article went on about the police superintendent. Well, let me go into that. Also, during Wednesday's media availability, Johnson expressed his full support for his hand-picked interim police superintendent, Fred Waller, arguing that Waller's presence has been absolutely remarkable in building the police department's confidence. Johnson also addressed critics who said he could not earn the trust of his officers, giving his past rhetoric critical of police. I mean, I caught most of my campaign. Some of it I missed, Johnson quipped about his mayoral run, but people didn't think that we can do that we can build the morale of rank-and-file members, and we've done that. Johnson also took a question about a WBEZ report that Waller was investigated for domestic violence in the 1990s. The mayor praised Waller's value system and noted the allegation was not sustained. And on the topic of the 3 finalists for Waller's permanent replacement, the mayor demurred on whether he had begun interviewing them and pushed back on the notion that he's moving too slowly on his agenda. It's important that we're intentional and that we take our time so that we make the right decision, Johnson said. Too many decisions in this city have been rushed decisions. NASCAR, anyone?
Okay. That with him saying that, we are still approaching that 100-day milestone, and people are going to want to know what has Mayor Brandon Johnson accomplished in that first 100 days. I wish someone had a list compiled, because I'm struggling to find out what things has he actually managed to do that we're able to check off either on our bingo card or just, the list of things that we thought needed to be done for the mayor, like the stuff we listed in the manifesto.
But you have checked some things off as we've compiled details from news stories.
Yeah, but not many. Actually,
I've got one for you. And it's in the show notes. Let's open
Okay.
up the homicides, shootings. Oh, you've got that. I think you've got that link up.
I do.
For anybody that wants to blame the mayor for escalation in violence and crime, Chicago Sun-Times reports homicides, shootings in July are down compared with last year. 60% of carjacking arrests are juveniles, police say. According to CPD, 59 people were killed across Chicago in July, nearly 12% lower than last year. If people are going to hold the mayor accountable for all the violent crime, I don't see anybody giving him credit for these stats with shootings down in July. The number, and I don't think, you know what, Ed, he's not
other than the Sun-Times.
Right. But here's the thing. You can't look, no mayor can control how many shootings there are. Okay.
No.
Any more than you can place a cop on every corner and every doorway of the city to go intervene like they're, a superhero and prevent a crime from happening. It's just not going to happen. But by the benchmark of people that constantly point to the mayor and say, oh, look at all the crime that's happening, it's the mayor's fault. Well, homicides and shootings are down. I haven't seen any credit given to the mayor, as this Chicago Sun-Times article is reporting. The number of people shot in July compared to last year fell from 441 to 352. There's still a lot of work there to be done, but I'm waiting for my archive. Why does sometimes archive load the article and other times I get all this HTML coding? Have you noticed that?
No, but I get those ad pop-ups on the side sometimes. They get in the way, but I've got my Sun-Times article up if you want me to.
Yeah, why don't you read from it?
As for carjackings, the city has recorded 707 vehicular hijackings since the beginning of the year, down roughly 27% compared to July of 2022. Of the 1,167 motor vehicle-related arrests, 126 were for vehicular hijacking, and 60% involved juvenile offenders, according to police. Violent crime on the CTA also went down by 21% compared to last July. From the start of the year to the end of July, 1,722 people have been shot in Chicago, which is slightly higher.
Okay, Ed, I've got a hot take on this.
Yeah.
Ready? The mayor doesn't deserve any credit for any of this, any mayor, because they have no control over these things happening.
Yeah.
But, and I do want to point out the hypocrisy of when the stats are high, they blame the mayor. As the stats have come down, they're not giving him any credit. That's the point I wanted to share with this article.
Well, and then of course, are they gonna give police credit or blame? And the question is, what exactly is their purpose? Are they just a reactionary force? Or are they escalating some of these situations?
Checking out some stuff in the live chat here. Art shares, there's no way to make the situation any better. I'm certain there's resentment in the Latino community against the migrants. I'm sure there is, Art, because too many Latinos in the local Chicago community have been overlooked and abandoned just as much as African Americans across the South and West sides. And we talked about this Tuesday. Suddenly there's a rush to help the migrants do all this stuff where there's never been a rush to help people in the neighborhoods or homeless people. And the argument shouldn't be migrants shouldn't get help. The argument should be everybody should get help. But that's the problem, is that how we prioritize. And my suspicion is that there is part of this effort humane, but it's also going to, help stoke a large constituency of voters who are going to be very grateful to the Democratic Party, the Democrats here in Chicago. They're going to vote for them with all of the amenities and support that they're getting that people who already live here don't get. Oh, Art, we're going to argue about this forever.
What is he not believing? The crime is going down?
No, just like a UFO, I don't believe it.
Okay. Well, you're entitled to your wrong opinions, Art. Sorry, I do that to everybody.
Yeah, he does it to me too. How many more facts do we have to put out? It's been covered up because of the technology, the military superiority, and the financial benefits of covering this shit up and reverse engineering these UAPs. Anyway, let's move on to our next story. Here's something that the Johnson administration is doing in answer to your question, Ed. This is the tweet on housing.
Hold on. I'm looking to see where we are in the show notes here.
Let me scroll down here and tell you. We are at Chicago, City of Chicago.
Oh, here we go. Okay. All right.
So this was shared this week from the mayor himself. My administration has filed a civil lawsuit against a network of property management companies for committing deceptive and unfair practices in the course of selling and leasing properties to predominantly low-income Chicago residents and families. So let's get to the City of Chicago's page that outlines what this lawsuit is about. The City of Chicago files suit against Vision Property Management for predatory home sales tactics used on low-income consumers. That's a step in the right direction. Residents looking for a pathway to home ownership were lured into signing contracts containing deceptive and unfair terms. This comes from the mayor's press office. Mayor Brendan Johnson today announced the city has filed a civil lawsuit against Vision Property Management, LLC, its successor FTE Networks, and its affiliates for committing deceptive and unfair practices in the course of selling and leasing properties to predominantly low-income Chicagoans. The complaint which was filed in the Circuit Court of Cook County, alleges that Vision Properties lured vulnerable consumers to sign exploitative rent-to-own agreements for dilapidated properties. As part of the scheme, Vision Properties trapped buyers in illegal contracts that obscured the financial terms of that purchase, failed to disclose the true condition of the properties, and shifted repair and maintenance responsibilities to the buyers while treating them as tenants. Vision Properties also charged consumers for the property taxes on their homes, but failed to remit those payments to the county.
Oh, those bastards.
Some Chicagoans to lose their homes through property tax sales. Vision Properties and its affiliates have historically engaged in misleading sales tactics targeted at predominantly underserved communities. Now they're getting around to filing a lawsuit against them, Ed. You know how long they've been around? Beginning in 2004. That's how long it took to take action, to advocate for low-income consumers.
Wait, who was mayor in 2004?
It was Richie Daley, wasn't it?
Was it Richie? Okay.
Yeah. Little Richie Capone. Pretty sure. Because when did Rahm take off? Rahm took office. Yeah, Rahm was serving as chief of staff during the Obama administration.
Yeah, it was Daley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, 2000.
He served until 2011. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he had a long term as mayor.
Yeah, so none of this was ever of any concern to little Richie. Defendants bought homes cheaply and in bulk in Chicago and other cities. Vision Properties attracted consumers by marketing the homes as a unique home ownership opportunity for people with low income or credit difficulties. But the contracts that Vision Properties created obscured the true cost of buying and repairing the homes and made home ownership almost impossible. Chicagoans trying desperately to achieve the American dream of home ownership should never, ever be subject to predatory behavior from unscrupulous firms like these, said Mayor Brandon Johnson. Under my administration, we will not tolerate our Black and brown communities to be further exploited. Those who try to take advantage of our city's workers and working families will be held to account. Defendants' actions misled consumers by burdening them with all the responsibilities of homeownership and none of the benefits, while also denying them the legal protections to which residential tenants are entitled, said Corporation Counsel Mary Richardson Lauer. 2004, Ed.
Yeah.
These guys, it's 2023. That's over. That's 19 years. Am I right?
2004, yeah.
19 years these people were allowed to prey on low-income consumers.
I think cities should seize their buildings everywhere and municipalize them and then give the homes to the people and let them fix them up.
This lawsuit, I think you're right. This lawsuit demonstrates, I like the way you think. This lawsuit demonstrates the city's commitment to seeking justice for communities that have been harmed. The city's complaint alleges that defendants' actions violate the city's consumer protection laws. The city seeks restitution for injured Chicagoans, fines under the municipal code, and an order permanently enjoining defendants from selling or leasing residential properties in Chicago, among other terms of relief. That would be like a corporate death penalty. The city is represented in this lawsuit by lawyers from the Affirmative Litigation Division and its Department of Law. If any Chicagoan wishes to inform the city about their experience with Vision Property Management or any of their affiliates, they can do so by emailing consumerprotection@cityofchicago.org. Now, you know what this reminds me of, though? As wrong as I was about his candidacy for the mayor's office of Chicago, former mayoral candidate Jamal Green had spearheaded a program. He had structured and created a program that led to affordable home ownership, and that is one of the many things that impressed me about Jamal. You know, as much as I feel like his turn to supporting Paul Vallis was just like, okay, dude, can you serve yourself anymore? He did do some good things. He does do some good things for his community, and one of those things is offering a path to home ownership through a lot of the community partners that he aligned himself with. And I believe that program was called My Turn to Own. So that was a counterpoint to what we're seeing, and that's been here for 19 years, that the city's finally had to rise up against and nip in the bud. So I want to be fair, about what people do and, what we might think is kind of straying off the path of what's the right thing to do. All right, so on to national news.
You don't have the puppet handy, do you?
I don't. I was thinking about using the puppet, but I'm like, nah, I don't need to talk about this in the Trump voice.
Right.
Did you notice I went to Al Jazeera for a more more objective?
Well, because you're not going to get objective stuff from American media right now about Trump. They're all just wetting their jeans because he got indicted one more time.
Unless you listen to Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald, who we will.
Yeah.
After I go through the Al Jazeera article. I recall also reading on social media this week, someone was traveling abroad and they had asked someone in another country what they thought of the Trump indictment. And they're just like, yeah, it seems that they want to like throw him in jail because he wants to run against the president, your current president. It's like, yeah, that's pretty much what it's all about. And that's not, and that's not to support Donald Trump, because I don't like Donald Trump and I don't like Joe Biden. But if you're going to be honest and objective and fair, you have to realize that this effort, and I got into it with a friend of mine on Twitter that I felt unfortunately has some shit lib leanings, who decided when I put up the Biden meme, it was called Bribey, like with a Barbie meme, and it showed Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Someone, well, you know, if we're going to go after everybody, we should really be chasing after Trump's kids, Ivanka and Jared and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, they both suck. They both suck. And I'm like, do you actually think that I would be supporting Trump's kids with the shit that they did and say, well, we shouldn't go after Biden? And this person gave a long litany of like all the horrible things that the Trump administration had done. And I'm just like, yeah, but you know, the Dems do it too. They just ignore it. You know, you're so focused on your hate for the Republicans, you're ignoring the shit that the Democrats. And I said, I didn't even use Democrats. I said, let's call them what they are: the neoliberals who have hijacked the Democratic Party, because they're not acting they're not acting as old school Democrats like you, Ed, or I grew up with the Ted Kennedys, or the who was the speaker, that Tip O'Neill's, the Democrats that we grew up with like during the 70s and 80s. This is a completely different. It's not a Democratic Party. It's a pro-business, pro-donor, neoliberal party that's basically taking money from the same interests that the Republicans do. They're just not as honest about it, which makes me think, well, at least the Republicans are honest in their what's the word? Treachery, as opposed to the Democrats who act like they're helping you and they're really not. They're just as treacherous. They just do it behind your back. But here's what Al Jazeera shares, and we're going to unwrap this with a video that I also have shared in the show notes of Jimmy Dore going over Glenn Greenwald, breaking a lot of this stuff down also. What to know about the election interference charges against Trump. Prosecutors say Donald Trump pushed fraud claims he knew to be untrue, pressured officials to alter results, and finally incited a violent assault on the U.S. Capitol to cling on to power. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been criminally charged for trying to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. And we got some interesting video to counterpoint this after we get through the details from our friends in the Democratic Party in regards to Trump's original win. The 4-count, 45-page indictment unsealed on Tuesday charges Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States by preventing Congress from certifying Joe Biden's victory and conspiring to deprive voters of their right to a fair election. The former president has been ordered to make an initial appearance in federal court in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. It marks the third time this year, third time's the charm, that Trump, who's the early front runner in the 2024 Republican presidential primary, has been charged in a criminal case. This is doing wonders for his campaign because what's the expression? No press is bad press.
There's no such thing as bad press.
Trump said he did nothing wrong and has accused special counsel Jack Smith, who led the investigation. Look, he's done plenty of things wrong, but, you know, this is, let me get through it. Who led the investigation against him and the Justice Department trying to harm his 2024 campaign. He's done other things wrong. Maybe not. You know, I'm on the fence. Did he incite this? No, because he did get on social media and ask people who'd shown up to Washington to basically back off and stand down and not engage in violence. What we found out since then is the FBI actually had agent provocateurs in that crowd fomenting
rile them up.
Yep.
And some unidentified people in masks breaking windows open to make it easier for people to get in.
Yeah. So was it
along with the Capitol Police just opening the gates and holding the doors open?
So was that the boldness of the crowd, or was that an assist from our FBI and the agent?
It doesn't take much for a mob action to turn into something worse if you have the proper motivations in place from bad actors, and that's what we had then.
The bad actors being from our own our FBI,
from intelligence agencies, yeah, basically, and I can't remember the guy's name. There's that one guy who was on 60 Minutes, and they were trying to make it seem like, oh, he wasn't a bad guy, although all he was doing the whole time was tell them, let's storm the Capitol, let's go in, no.
To Democrats,
no,
thank you, Warren.
That's not what they wanted.
Yes, it was. Agent Provocateur is also an excellent album from Foreigner. All right, so the article goes on to say, Trump is charged with 4 counts: conspiracy to defraud the U.S., obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy. I'm going to pull this down, Ed, and I want you to get the video queued of, just have it ready. Don't pull it up yet. I want to get through the articles, but I want to have
Ray Epps is that's the one I'm thinking of. I got it ready.
The 12 minutes. Yeah, just have that.
12.
Ready. Okay. The 12 minutes of Democrat. It's in the show notes.
Oh, hold on a second.
Yeah, we'll save Jimmy and Greenwald after I want to count. I had stuff in a different order, but I want to, as we go through things that Trump is charged. Trump is charged with 4 counts: conspiracy to defraud the U.S., obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy to prevent others from carrying out their constitutional rights. The biggest part of this complaint is that Trump questioned the outcome of the election, and by doing so, thus incited the crowd that showed up in Washington. This is at the heart of this current crop of charges against him. The indictment is built around the words of Trump's advisors, White House lawyers, and others in the former president's inner circle who repeatedly told him there was no fraud in the 2020 election. Yet, according to the indictment, Trump pushed fraud claims he knew to be untrue, pressured state and federal officials, including former Vice President Mike Pence, to alter the results, and finally incited a violent assault on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, in a desperate attempt to undermine democracy and cling to power. Ed, let's roll the video of Democrats, 12 minutes of Democrats
denying the results
of the of Trump's election against Hillary Clinton.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
Yeah, before we continue with that, you didn't run the best campaign.
She elevated Trump. She created the Pied Piper strategy that got us stuck with him.
You put him there to run against you. You ran a crappy campaign, one of the worst campaigns ever. And you still refuse to blame yourself or take any responsibility for that.
Because she was entitled to it, Ed. Because she was a Clinton, and because she was the first woman who decided that she's the one who's destined to be president.
Yeah, you rigged a whole primary just to get to that point. Yes, you did. Stop denying it.
Let's continue the video.
I can hear you in my brain telling me that you didn't. Sorry, I'll continue.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's the real
what I'm
thing.
scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Could you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president or elect, although legally elected, is not
legitimate. Can you pause it for a second? what shocks me is that for all of the Democrats who claimed that then, and all the Republicans who are now claiming that supporting Trump for questioning the results when Biden won, I actually had this debate with my sister who thinks that the election results were rigged for Biden. I said to her, if the election results were rigged for Biden this time out with Trump, why didn't the Democrats rig the election last time when it was Hillary against Trump? Why wouldn't they do that? If they have all this power, I don't think either election was rigged. I really don't. I think that there was legitimate interference with Trump, or I'm sorry, when Biden deciding to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story as it related to Biden's dealings with Ukraine. That was a legitimate, well, there's no,
that was 100% election interference.
It was election interference. It wasn't rigging, but it was interference. And I go back to when Trump won. I'm like, if the Democrats could rig elections, why didn't they rig it so that Hillary would win? I think both parties jump on inciting and fomenting everybody's, lizard brains because of the red-blue duopoly all the time. And as we're seeing from this video, look at how many Democrats denied the election results of Donald Trump winning. And now they're prosecuting Trump for denying the election results between him and Biden.
It's a lot easier to rig primaries for your party than it is to rig a general election, because there's all kinds of things in place in a general election that you don't have to worry about in your own Democratic primary, where you set your own rules. You can pick your nominee in a back room smoking cigars, like their legal counsel said when they were sued about that situation.
That's how they screwed Bernie Sanders and took him away as a legitimate candidate.
So while I can say, there probably were a lot of attempts on both sides that of the duopoly to try and lean the election one way or another with all kinds of shenanigans that we can't necessarily prove. I don't think there is the type of election shenanigans that they were claiming that kept that got Trump elected and kept Hillary from the White House. She was a terrible candidate. If you're a lousy candidate, you should be able to overcome anything like what you were dealing with Trump on. And as far as Trump, he's going to do whatever he can do to try and tilt things his way if he thinks there's wiggle room when they're counting the votes. And I could guarantee you that the other side was doing it too.
The same way the Democrats did. So let's continue playing the video because I want to be able to get to Jimmy, and I want to show a little bit more examples of like everything the Democrats do that was okay denying election results, but that now is apparently illegal and enough to bring charges against Trump. Not condoning or supporting Trump, but we're talking about there's no objectivity, there's no equity. It's all hypocrisy on both sides.
President-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president. The one thing.
How did the Russians, let me get my word in. How did the Russians rig our election? Nobody has brought anything forth. While this bitch over here decided to burn her servers and hide her emails so nobody could actually get to the real legitimate crimes that she committed, to get a handle on that so that a lot of people already suspected shit that was going on. Okay? But, when they commit the crimes, they cover them up. And with Trump, no evidence whatsoever of Russians having anything to do with rigging our elections. And it persists to this day. People still believe that.
Thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object because people are horrified.
He's an illegitimate president.
Isn't that election interference? All of them objecting in Congress to the results of the Electoral College?
Might be.
Let's continue.
I mean, well, the Electoral College probably should be abolished in its way anyway. I mean, it's just.
But again, they are challenging with no evidence the election results the way that they're claiming Trump was, in a way that fomented violence in the Capitol in the January 6th insurrection. But I can't stand this one. Every time I see her, I want to.
No, she's got a lot of nerve coming on TV and saying anything about anyone cheating about elections.
I have no doubt she was responsible
so much nerve
for the death of Seth Rich behind the scenes. I feel it in my bones. I've got no evidence, but the whole Seth Rich incident with that computer and what went to WikiLeaks, was it Seth Rich? I believe
we can't make any kind of definitive claims on this, or they're going to pull our channel down, Jerry. But I can tell you that the DNC definitely had their hands in that whole thing.
I said I have no evidence, but I'm speculating, given how much was covered up then. Don't worry about what we say here is like getting a strike on our channel.
I just wanted to make sure that the algorithm is understanding.
The algorithm doesn't give a shit what we say. All the algorithm wants to do is hit us with copyright strikes for music, for fair use clips. So leave that to me to worry about.
Okay.
Because I'm the one managing it all the time. So I don't need to be tone police when I say something like that. Sorry, man.
I'm not tone policing you. I'm just trying to cover bases here.
You don't have to do that. I'm producing the show, so I'm not worried about it.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, DWS, she's terrible.
Do you believe Trump is illegitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
There actually is a cloud of illegitimacy. So that legitimacy is in question, yes.
So that was a very tainted election. And in that sense, it's illegitimate.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he knows he didn't. He knows he's an illegitimate president.
Stolen emails, stolen drone, stolen election. Welcome to the world of unprecedented Trump.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract.
The Russian attempt to have the election, and frankly, the FBI is weighing in on the election, I think makes his election illegitimate.
There was a widespread understanding that this election was not on the level. We still don't know what really happened, Isaac. I mean,
all right, let's
just
stop
a lot.
We get the picture. Okay, we get the picture.
We're 2 minutes in too. I mean, it's pure gaslighting.
And it's a 12-minute video. So let's go to our bookmarked clip with Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald, who I think most effectively break this down for us. And then we'll go into how it shouldn't be at the beginning ad. I had it at a start point of 7 minutes and 33 seconds in.
7:33. Okay.
I believe that's where it should be. Yeah.
All right. Ready?
Yep. I think that's it.
And of course, that's what Trump did as well.
Yes.
And they're acknowledging he had the right to do that, even if the claims on which those challenges and lawsuits are based were false.
That's not the start point.
So what's he guilty?
That's not.
Is clicking on the link in the show notes not bringing it up where I said share from this point?
Oh, hold on. 733 seconds is what you needed. Okay. Hold on.
Well, whatever the link says is how I saved it to the show notes.
Stand by.
Okay.
Wait, I gotta unmute it.
New York Times and see that people are leaking classified information without authorization because it serves their interest to do so. People in Washington are never convicted or charged with crimes for doing the sort of thing Trump did in that case or the one in Manhattan, nor is this even close to a strong indictment. And I think they're playing with huge fire by piling up these criminal indictments in a way that polls already show at least half of the voting electorate perceives to be abusive and politicized, to the point that it's strengthening Trump when they do so, because they don't really have very compelling evidence that he committed serious crimes of the type that justify bringing these charges against him in the context of how politicians are usually treated. And I think we should think about what our media would be saying, what our establishment would be saying if in some other country we're taught to dislike in Russia, or Iran, or Venezuela, or whomever, where they do actually have elections. If the government in place looked at polling data that showed there was an oppositional politician gaining popularity, this is what it said about Putin and Alvani, for example, and the government is, instead of engaging them in debate or trying to defeat them in elections, instead putting them in prison on dubious charges. I watched that happen here in Brazil twice. In 2017, former President Lula da Silva was leading all polls.
So now remember this. So remember how Lula was put in jail. Bolsonaro becomes president. They say he's the new Trump. And then they let Lula out of prison. And then he beats Bolsonaro, and Joe Biden congratulates and that's what made me, and I think Jackson Hinkle and someone else, very skeptical, like, what's going on with Lula? That's not good when the establishment is happy that this guy who's supposed to be against the establishment, supposed to be a socialist and a lefty, is being congratulated by the king of imperialism and capitalism. And now he's going to explain that to you. He's going to explain that to you, why they put Lula in jail, why they let him out of jail, and why they're putting Bolsonaro in jail right now. It's the exact same thing that the establishment is doing here in the United States. And by the way, it's the same establishment. It's the capitalist establishment. The CIA and the FBI and the military work for the same capitalists that put Lula in jail and took him out of jail. The same capitalists. Okay, so he's going to explain it to you.
By significant margins, at a time when the Brazilian establishment wanted to get rid of Lula and his party because they were hoping to get a center-right party in place that they've loved forever and couldn't get. And so they impeached the president from Lula's party. They then put Lula in prison. And instead of getting the center-right establishment candidate they thought they were getting, they instead got Bolsonaro.
Boom. Just like with Trump. So you remember when the Clintons convinced Donald Trump to run? And then the Clintons got everybody in the media to elevate Donald Trump so that they could run against Donald Trump because they thought they could beat him. So they even cheated Bernie Sanders in the primary to do this. So that's a kind of rigging of an election too. If you look at
I get there's the rigging right there. Why they didn't try to potentially rig the election with the electronic voting machines, because they were so certain they had it in the bag that they didn't need to do that because they thought Trump was a joke of a candidate. This was this was a legitimate rigging without actually illegally rigging machines by, as you mentioned earlier, what was the phrase that you used? Interfering with. You used a really good phrase earlier.
What, election interference?
Yeah, interfering with the direction of the election by well, as we were referencing Biden and his son, how they suppressed that story.
Oh, yeah, I did. What was the phrase? I've already forgotten. It's like there's only so much they could do in the general election. They can kind of steer the results in one way or another, but they can't do a complete rigging of a general election because too many people are going to notice. There's too many I guess safeguards in place, or what are they? I forget what they call them.
So they rigged perception before the election with lies.
Yeah.
Okay. Or setting up a quote unquote Pied Piper candidate in Trump that they thought they could easily beat. And then, Biden, who's up against a formidable challenge with Trump that no one expected, knowing that the Hunter Biden story is probably going to sink his potential win, uses the media to suppress the truth of those allegations that everybody thought was, Trump making shit up. And now we found out all that stuff is true.
Yeah. And then, of course, and then the networks get sued by the election machines, was it Diebold or one of the other election machine voting machine companies, whatever, because voting machines used to be very hackable. I don't know what the situation is these days, but there was a whole, that was maybe more than 10 years ago. HBO had a
documentary.
A documentary. Was it called Black Box Voting? But this person named Bev Harris has a website called blackboxvoting.org. And the documentary was basically about how the machines were very hackable, where people could take like a flash drive or some type of memory card or whatever, and just replace the results before the precincts got reported. And so it's not unheard of to think that maybe that might have been happening, but there's no way to prove that.
I think the bottom line is there's no reason we need electronic voting machines when paper ballots worked fine in the past, and there's a trail and a record.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what it was. Fred Edward mentions it. And they were able to basically keep control over the fact that those machines were hackable because it was proprietary technology and proprietary software.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue the video with Jimmy.
They got the media to do propaganda for them, got them their hand-picked candidate, suppressed Bernie Sanders, lied about him, smeared him, did character assassination. Plus, they also cheated him 100%. Donna Brazile even said in her book, and
but I'm just pausing it really quick. Donna Brazile knows what happened to Seth Rich. She knows. Someday she'll tell everybody.
And for people that aren't familiar with Seth Rich, he was the Democratic Party operative, worker, employee, I don't know how you would define him, who had a computer that proved that the WikiLeaks story regarding... go ahead.
Yeah, it is believed that he is the guy who leaked the data about Hillary's emails to WikiLeaks, I believe.
Yeah, and the contention after that was that no, the Russians fed that information to WikiLeaks, after which Seth Rich was found dead of an alleged mugging, of which he still had his wallet and all of his money. But the computer, wasn't the computer gone?
There's
a laptop?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of rabbit hole regarding the Seth Rich story, and people have been getting sued for even trying to dig into it right now. Even the family is no longer trying to pursue the truth.
Well, that's because they're afraid.
As hell.
That's because they've probably been threatened, Ed, because there was a point where they were interested. And then Debbie Wasserman Schultz went before the police department. I think it was in Miami-Dade, where she's congresswoman, and demanded that laptop, which was police evidence, back because she was entitled to it. She did not want the authorities to find out what was on that computer. And she muscled them. There's video of her. And it's extraordinary to see how, I mean, she, listening to her threaten law enforcement down there about getting that laptop back was like listening to some mobster threaten intimidation against a potential witness in any kind of a court proceeding. It was astonishing and just reprehensible to see how she was treating law enforcement that was trying to conduct an investigation. And that laptop was key evidence, and she wanted it back. She didn't want anybody looking at it. She claimed it was hers and the Democratic Party's property, which speaks to the secrecy we talk about, like in the rigging of their own primaries, all the shit they want to keep under wraps because they have no accountability.
Yeah, the DNC is the definition of hinky.
So Warren shares in the chat, Russia hacked the servers, but Bill Binney on Jimmy Dore said that the data stream pattern suggests it was copied to a thumb drive, right? Not transferred through a hack. Yeah, really quickly. The way that it was speculated that it came from Seth Rich's laptop was because the amount of time it took for that data to be given to WikiLeaks pointed to it being passed over on a thumb drive, not a data download or a data transfer through the internet from an international source. All right, let's continue the video. Thank you.
I lost my train of thought.
I was gonna say they openly said they'd rather have him.
See, he does it too. He does it too.
Then
yeah, they've said they'd rather have Trump than Bernie. I forgot what I was saying.
And then when Bolsonaro was president, they knew that there was only one person who could defeat Bolsonaro, and they were desperate to get Bolsonaro out of office. So they let Lula out of prison. Our reporting was credited for that. And they did use our reporting as a pretext for it, but they would never let him out of prison had they not needed him to defeat Bolsonaro. They would have kept him in prison despite that evidence. They let him out of prison. He beat Bolsonaro by less than 2 points, despite all of the same things aligned against Bolsonaro, the entire media, COVID, allegations of criminality. And in less than a year of Lula winning that election, in less than 6 months, in fact, courts have already declared Bolsonaro ineligible to run again for the next 8 years until he's 70.
So they're doing to Trump what they already did to Bolsonaro. Now, again, I'm no fan of Bolsonaro. I'm no fan of Trump. You know me, I'm a committed lefty. But what they could do, if they can do that to Trump, then they could do it to anybody.
They already have.
And I've tried to explain to people.
They already have. They did it to Sanders. They're going to do it to Cornel West and RFK. You know that. That's right on the horizon.
Well, RFK already destroyed his own campaign from my perspective, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we saw that on Jimmy's show last week. Was it this week or last week? He went on and did an interview.
That was this week, and he should have been fine with talking to Max Blumenthal about that situation, but apparently,
I think it's less RFK and more his handlers.
Well, yeah,
and which RFK should say no. I want to get in front of this, and maybe be corrected. You know, wouldn't it be something if RFK decided to engage with Max Blumenthal and actually recognize he was wrong? I'd have a lot of respect for him. But his handlers don't want to do that.
Yeah, his donors don't want him to do that either. Because
of the conservatives in power in Israel right now. That's not bigotry, everybody. That's not anti-Semitism. I've spoken with a lot of people, a lot of Jewish people who are utterly disgusted with Netanyahu and that party and how they are able to easily manipulate policy here in the United States to benefit themselves at the expense of genocide against the Palestinians, at the expense of getting all the benefits that we can't afford our own citizens here in the United States. This has to do with politics, not anti-Semitism or any kind of bigotry. So that RFK is concerned about the strength of the current Israeli government is unfortunately what I think that was all about. And his handlers, they don't want to piss off the Israelis. A lot of money there. Ed, you're Jewish. You want to correct me, or am I wrong?
He's way too close. RFK is way too close to the Israel lobby, and he clearly is either choosing to be misled or he's just completely hoodwinked by the influence of the right wing Zionist type Israel lobbies, which, by the way, they should be registering as foreign agents, and they still don't.
Can I speak to the fact? Yeah. I do think it's ignorance. I think it's because when I heard someone asking RFK questions about the UAP disclosures, he didn't have a fucking clue. I'm like, your brother and your uncle and your father were in government and probably present during a lot of stuff that's happened during the past 4 or 5 decades as it related to UFOs and UAPs. And he was utterly surprised at all of the disclosures and allegations that were being brought forth before Congress. And Ed, he sounded genuinely surprised. To me, I think he does not have his finger on the pulse of anything aside from maybe what his handlers are telling him or feeding him, which is unfortunate because I personally think he's a decent guy, but I think he's woefully misguided, as we saw when he did the interview with Jimmy Dore and refused to continue engaging in a conversation with Max Blumenthal on Israel's influence and what's currently happening between them and the Palestinians.
I'm switching over to my hotspot right now because I think AIPAC must be listening. But there are other Jewish organizations that have the correct view on these things. Jewish Voice for Peace, JVP, is one of those organizations that knows that we should not be promoting an apartheid Israel led by Zionists, because Zionism is not real Judaism. If you're really splitting hairs there, it's just, and I hate to say it, but I think I'm entitled, since I have had a bar mitzvah, and that I can say that Jews are basically behaving like Nazis right now, and they don't even realize it.
Thank you for saying what I've thought, and I know I can't say it because people would say that makes me a Nazi.
It's authoritarian and fascist
and genocidal, as genocidal against Palestinians as the Nazis were against Jews during the Holocaust.
And for them to completely ignore that, it's hypocritical.
A lot of talk about hypocrisy tonight between the Democrats and the Republicans, Israel and Germany. The situation is the same. And what strikes me about that, Ed, thank you for making it safe to talk about this. What strikes me about this is that I've often reflected on the fact that if any culture, any religion, any ethnic identity has been through the worst, it's been Jews with the Holocaust. And it's like, how fucking short-sighted and entitled are you? Not all Jews, but those that are in control right now, trying to wipe out the Palestinians. That we've had decades of needing to remember what happened so it never happened again, and we don't want it to happen again.
Yeah,
but so
unless
many of
it's
those
not
that are
them.
Exactly. So long as it's not them, it's okay to do this, inflict the same kind of genocide and the same kind of hatred and the same kind of just evil against another culture, so long as it doesn't happen to you again. And that's what just blows me away. It's like, if anybody should know what's right and wrong, it should be Israel. And nope, they feel they have this destiny now to do to others what was done to them, and that's the disconnect. I just cannot wrap my mind around.
It's an absolute self-entitlement. It's a religious entitlement. They feel like we're the chosen ones. This is our land, and everyone else is subhuman. Basically, they treat Palestinians as the other, as less than. And that's why they have no problem oppressing them in the way they do. They have no problem especially you got American New York Jews, basically, some of them, I'm generalizing here, I'm stereotyping, that are basically going to Israel and claiming Palestinians' land as their own. For under no real justification other than I'm a Jew and I get to have your land. That's not cool.
Isn't that what we saw happen in Nazi Germany? With the Jewish businesses, rounding everybody up and throwing them in concentration camps to take their property and all of their belongings. It's the same thing. Maybe just short of the concentration camp line, but no different as far as them basically pushing all Palestinians into the Mediterranean.
Look, they're not putting them in gas chambers or whatever, or putting them on trains to go into these, concentration camps. But the fact that they've been, I don't know if I'm intelligent enough to speak of all the ins and outs of this. Again, we should probably. There's going to be clips in the next day or two from Jimmy Dore talking. He talked to Max Blumenthal today while I was on my commute home. And I would assume that he's going to push back on all of the things that RFK talked to Jimmy about a few days ago. So I would recommend watching that kind of stuff to get a little more information on what Max is likely going to give a general history lesson of that area, of Israel and Palestine, and all of the reasons why what's currently happening is apartheid, and it's terrible, and it needs to stop.
What struck me about this interview between Jimmy and RFK was that RFK went into what we would assume was a friendly forum, because I think Jimmy Dore has been we're kind of getting off the subject of Trump, but really briefly, I think Jimmy Dore has been positive about RFK's candidacy until the question of Israel and Palestine came up. And now all the clips coming from Jimmy's show are RFK's odious comments about Israel. It's just like, whoa, talk about walking into a hornet's nest. It was never meant to be a hornet's nest. Now,
well, and that's probably, well, and that's why Jimmy waited till the end of their interview to talk about that stuff, because I mean, he wanted to have RFK on to talk basically about, you know, all the pandemic stuff and the vaccine and COVID and all that stuff, which we now have a whole lot more truths about now than that have been released than we've had before. In fact, recently someone on video came out admitting that heads of state and members of the pharmaceutical industry got their own versions. Versions of the vaccine to take. You know, some of them might have actually just been saline. So, you know, get appropriately mad about that, please. People out there.
So before we go to Jimmy's video or continue with it, I want to quote from this article that comes from the New York Times, specifically. Why are we talking about all this? What makes the indictment against Donald J. Trump on Tuesday so breathtaking is not that it is the first time a president has been charged with a crime, or even a second. Mr. Trump already holds those records. But as serious as hush money and classified documents may be, this third indictment in 4 months gets to the heart of the matter, the issue with that will define the future of American democracy. At the core of the United States of America versus Donald Trump is no less than the viability of a system constructed during that summer in Philadelphia. Can a sitting president spread lies about an election and try to employ the authority of the government to overturn the will of the voters without consequence? As we saw, the Democrats did it too, but Trump's now being charged for it. So either we hold the Democrats from the last election cycle as accountable, charge them, although it didn't end up in an insurrection. The circumstances are the same. They tried to subvert the results of the 2018 election. My years is, when Trump beat Obama, it was 2018, right?
2020.
2020. I'm sorry. They tried to 2020.
No.
2020
Wait,
was.
hold on. You're getting the names confused here. Which election are you talking about?
I'm talking about the election when Trump beat Hillary Clinton. That was 2018.
Okay.
Correct?
That was 2016.
2016. Thank you. So what I'm saying is that if you're going to hold Donald Trump accountable for this, and maybe you should hold a sitting president or politician accountable, hold them responsible for trying to employ the authority of government to overturn the will of the voters. If you're going to do that against Trump, fine. Go back to 2016 and do it against all those Democrats we showed in 2 minutes of that 12-minute video, where you actually saw Democrats standing up in Congress, questioning the results state by state, claiming that it was rigged and that's why Trump won. Because there's no difference. There is no difference, especially there's no difference in the corruption of both parties. The question would have been unimaginable just a few years ago, but the Trump case raises the kind of specter more familiar in countries with histories of coups and juntas and dictators. In effect, Jack Smith, the special counsel who brought the case, charged Mr. Trump with one of the most sensational frauds in the history of the United States, one quote-unquote fueled by lies and animated by the basest of motives, the thirst for power. Okay, and the Democrats didn't do the same thing in 2016? Mr. Smith dispensed with the notion that Mr. Trump believed his claims of election fraud. So did the Democrats. The defendants knew that they were false, it said, and made them anyway to create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger and erode public faith in the administration of the election. Yeah, he's guilty of that. So are the Democrats. Point being, everybody, before we go back to Jimmy Dore's video, it's the rules for thee, not for me. Now, at the level of the two parties, the kayfabe duopoly, as Ed defines it, they're all members of the same club, but now it really is just a power struggle, not to govern and legislate for us, but for each side to govern and legislate for their own agendas and their own power.
Yeah, it's which millionaires get to play with the toys for 4 years.
Right. Let's finish up with Jimmy's commentary.
People that who are Bernie Sanders backers, who are loving the Trump prosecutions, that they would be doing the exact same thing to Bernie Sanders that they did to Donald Trump. And not just now, but what they did to Donald Trump in 2017, 2018, all the Russiagating stuff, all that, they would have tried to delegitimize Bernie Sanders' presidency, and they would have done it because they would have had most of the Democratic Party going along with the Democratic establishment, the entire Republican establishment, and the entire media. People on MSNBC said they would rather vote for Trump than Bernie Sanders. So that's the point I want to make, that they would be doing the, so that's why it's easy to dismiss this. Just like with Alex Jones. People are like, oh, who cares? It's Alex Jones. They're kicking him off all the platforms.
I think it was Donnie Deutsch, if I remember correctly, said he would rather vote for Trump. And then people on this panel were trying to get him to take it back. It's like, I mean, seriously, how was Bernie worse?
He wasn't at all. But they managed to manufacture that narrative, the Bernie bros. I mean, progressives who supported Bernie Sanders were for nothing but equity amongst all races, all genders, all political classes, from workers to. That's what they were about. And the Democrats, the neoliberals in the Democratic Party, the Rahm Emanuels, the Debbie Wasserman Schultzes, the Hillary Clintons, the Barack Obamas, the neoliberals, they're not true Democrats. They love Ronald Reagan. Who's Barack Obama's favorite president, Ed?
Reagan.
Yeah. He's gone on the record and said it, which makes me laugh at all the Republicans who scream.
He was a Reagan Democrat.
Right. But for all the Republicans who scream and kick about Barack Obama and the way he ran things, it's like he was like fucking Ronald Reagan light. But because he had a D behind his name, they're just blind to the fact that he's admitted and acknowledged and shown through his behavior he was a Reagan Democrat, right-leaning, pro-business, anti-worker. But he had the D, so that means he's the devil.
Big fan of droning
Ronald
people.
Reagan wasn't. Both of them were the devil, is my point. But
and taking away, and I had to make the case to the Young Turks. Well, this is how they started, and now it got even worse than I thought. It went to censoring the leading doctors and scientists in their fields, censoring them, not just randos and idiots and people who are provocateurs. Leading scientists from Stanford and Harvard and Yale, they were censors, and that's where that ends up. And so the same thing. So if you allow this to happen, they will do this to anybody who actually is. So if Cornel West is able to grab, they're going to do this to him even worse.
Get ready for
way
it.
Worse.
Well, they're already smearing him. And look, you Democrats, no, you're not entitled to anyone's vote. Okay. If someone is supporting a third party, they're supporting a third party. They're not taking votes away from you. You already lost their votes because you're garbage and you're not much better Republicans.
You use the right word, Ed. They feel entitled. It's like you're not. You need to earn it. But this is the thing, Ed. They're not used to earning it because they've been entitled to it for so long. They don't have to give a shit about workers' rights or unions or the middle class that they abandoned once they realized there's more money to be made filleting Wall Street, pharmaceutical cartels, and insurance companies.
They're much happier just continuing to gaslight us, to tell us, whoa, no, the economy's fine. It's all in your head that you can't afford to make ends meet, that groceries are too expensive and you can't pay your bills. That because our data says that you're just stupid and wrong. So vote for us. No, sorry. Plus, you still owe me $600.
The Washington Post article goes on to say, the one who tried to defraud the United States, Mr. Smith charged, was Mr. Trump with bogus claims that he knew or had every reason to know were bogus, all in a bid for power. The former president will argue that this is all politics and that he should be returned to office in next year's election. And so far, millions of Americans have taken his side. Now the justice system and the electoral system will engage in a 15-month race to see which will decide his fate first and the country's. The real verdict on the Trump presidency is still to come. That was by Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent at, I'm sorry, New York Times, not Washington Post.
Yeah. So I was like, wait, wasn't that the New York Times? Okay. Doesn't matter either. Both of them are behind a paywall for me. So,
so yeah, I mean, I think we made the point. I thought,
done? Okay.
Yeah, I thought Greenwald's explanation and Jimmy's framework would help put the Trump charges in perspective. That this is a political witch hunt.
It's political, yeah.
Now, it does, again, that doesn't mean we condone Donald Trump or his venal personality or policies. I think both Trump and Biden are both completely cut from the same cloth, even though Trump's a little bit more honest about how odious he is, whereas Biden tries to pretend he's the friendly old grandfather who's got all of our best interests at heart. They're both scumbags. They're both shit. And, you know, go ahead.
Can I put a button on this with something I tweeted a little while ago? It was yesterday.
Sure.
Neither of them should have been president the first time. Neither should be running again. I don't know how much clearer we can be here. Hashtag dump the duopoly.
And if you haven't already followed Ed on Twitter at RDD Pizza, Ed is always sharing some really, really good nuggets of wisdom there. And it'd be great if people started following him and sharing and retweeting what he's sharing there. I think everybody should see and hear and comment and pass the wisdom along.
Yeah.
Along with following us at Chicago Corner TV on Twitter.
Yes. And definitely anytime we retweet, boy, they call it reposting now. Anytime we retweet our merch store stuff, please retweet that. Just let people know that we got some cool merch.
How are we supposed to pronounce tweeting now? Zeeting, I heard, because there's
I'm
an
not
X.
doing that.
But X would be Xing, not Zeeting, because Zeeting would mean there's a Z, not an X.
Sheeting?
Sheeting, so that would be equivalent to shitting? What?
Yeah, pretty much.
Sheeting?
I'm not
All
doing
right.
it. It's Twitter.
Let's go into our next story. There's some video, and I do think the video, I do have it bookmarked to start where Pritzker begins speaking.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Because our own governor, J.B. Pritzker, also known as Fred Flintstone, Governor Fred. Can I call him Governor Fred Flintstone? It's not a comment on his weight. He looks like Fred Flintstone. I'm telling you.
His haircut. Oh, yeah, the haircut.
Lived in real life with a suit. He would look like J.B. Pritzker. But the Intelligencer ran an article that I found on social media. J.B. Pritzker is a new Democratic power broker. He is rich and powerful, making him both an ally to Joe Biden and his own center of influence. That couldn't be more evident than this recent press conference he gave, which, to his credit, is a positive development as far as railway infrastructure in Illinois. So let's hear what Governor Pritzker had to share at this press conference on new rail infrastructure investments in Illinois.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I really am pleased to have everybody here today.
Pause it for a second.
Normally, you get to see
Wilma! Okay, go on.
I can kind of see that. Yeah, I mean, with the hairstyle and everything. There's actually a guy.
It's the jowls, too. Wait, he has no neck.
There's a newscaster. I want to say it's on one of the financial channels. Actually looks even more like Fred Flintstone, but I can't remember the guy's name.
your rail yard. Instead, today you get to look out on the great vista of the skyline of Chicago. We've come together, of course, to celebrate countless infrastructure milestones for our state since I became governor. But the ones that bring people together, that make it easier to do business face to face, are the ones that are most endearing to me. These kinds of investments allow our residents to more easily access places and opportunities beyond their immediate neighborhoods, and they open doors for new jobs and for new businesses. The Chicago Hub Improvement Program, with its scope and its scale, will have an enormously positive impact on people's lives. This proposal, totaling over $1 billion of federal, state, and private investment, encompasses the full portfolio of the mega region's transportation services. While the Midwest has soared in ridership in Amtrak's portfolio, that surge hasn't been met with capacity investments to match. The Chicago Hub Improvement Program is an opportunity for new federal infrastructure funding to catalyze the rail system that this region deserves. This proposal would not only make much needed improvements to Union Station and existing rail lines throughout Illinois and into Michigan, it would unlock a vast system of new and expanded passenger rail services throughout the Midwest, with Chicago's Union Station serving as the hub. My administration has committed $50 million to support this project at the state level. That's nearly a quarter of the $218 million of matching funds required to bring the federal government in as partners with an additional $800+ million. I'm grateful to our regional partners.
I'm trying to switch back to my internet connection here. Yeah, that's a lot of money because I'm getting a lousy signal over here and hoping that you guys are able to see what I'm playing here.
The YouTube is playing fine, although your image is okay.
Okay. All right, let me stand by.
Provide the remaining local matching funds. That means the city of Chicago, the county of Cook, Metra, Amtrak, and the Michigan Department of Transportation. I'd like to recognize Illinois' congressional delegation, led by Senators Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, with a special shout out, of course, to Congressman Mike Quigley for championing federal funds for this project. And of course, our partners in organized labor, Bob Reiter, Mike Masaleo, Bob Guy, and Brian Shanahan. Thank you for your engagement. Teamwork and collaboration at all levels is how we get big things done here in the state of Illinois. I'm pleased to share that I received a letter just yesterday from Governor Gretchen Whitmer in support of the Chicago Hub Improvement Program, and I'm thrilled to be teamed up with her as we bring in funding to both of our states for this critical project. Chicago is the heart and the soul of the nation. I'm sorry if I borrowed that from our mayor. But we're at the center of the nation's transportation system, in part because we're the most important rail hub in America for Amtrak, freight, and commercial rail. The Chicago Hub Improvement Program is designed to modernize all of.
I think we're also the biggest air hub in the nation as well. Is it Chicago?
Well,
O'Hare?
I don't know if it still is, but O'Hare Airport had been for quite a while. I mean, they got huge warehouses for, I think, UPS and FedEx over there as well.
As the midway point. Well, we've heard enough from him. I mean, that's to demonstrate what the Intelligencer article goes into that I'm going to share now. If you want to bring up the picture of him from Intelligencer, I'll just start sharing what Gabriel De Benedetti, New York's national correspondent, shared. This is from the New York Intelligencer. One afternoon in late July.
Are you talking about New York Mag? Oh, New York Mag. Okay.
Yeah. Right. One afternoon in late July, J.B. Pritzker reclined in a conference room high above Chicago and considered the curious case of Ron DeSantis. Pritzker, the 58-year-old governor of Illinois, was in his light blue shirt sleeves and a neatly knitted bright pink tie. My Barbie tie, he quipped to business leaders earlier, revealing he'd watched the movie with his wife and daughter. He was slightly bewildered by the Florida governor's misfortunes in the GOP presidential primary, which had recently led DeSantis to lay off a huge chunk of his staff amid cratering poll numbers. I had never really paid a lot of attention to his manner and his personality so much, only to his policies and his hype and the extremist positions, Pritzker told me, speaking carefully as he settled into pundit mode. But the point is, that is not what's killing him. Pritzker, who with his dark hair and broad face looks a little like Fred Flintstone, looks like Oliver Platt playing an 80s businessman, started to speed up as if the topic were more exciting than he wanted to let on. You get the sense of somebody who doesn't actually care about people. He's just got shtick that he puts on for the purpose of a campaign. Pritzker, who spent plenty of time with presidential candidates and thought plenty about what it takes to run for president, concluded, you have to believe what you believe to your core in order to make it through a process like that. And he said of DeSantis, it appears to me he doesn't actually have a core. I think that's pretty good insight. I think DeSantis is only running for power. Now, Pritzker, does he care? Mr. Billionaire?
No.
He says he does a little bit, although I know a lot of most of it's obviously for his own agenda and his own ego, serving as governor. But we've remarked in the past that he's done some decent things for Illinois. And this previous video of him, making sure that we are dealing more with railway infrastructure in the state of Illinois is actually going to be very helpful and replace so much bad infrastructure.
Yeah, although my complaint, as always, is the federal government is always nickel and diming everything that they do. They need to be throwing. No, it isn't. I'm not saying it's Pritzker's fault. I'm saying that our representatives need to fight harder and speak louder for real infrastructure funding. Should be 10 times larger than anything we're getting.
But he's taking the lead on it. And he's apparently getting it with his entreaties to Durbin and Duckworth. Now, his take about DeSantis was worth considering, not because of Pritzker's own flirtations with the campaign last year, but because the most wired-in Democrats from Washington, D.C. to Chicago to Los Angeles expect him to be a paramount figure in the 2024 election, and not just because of his suit size.
No, they're probably thinking he's a kingmaker.
Or if Biden drops dead, maybe something more.
He might get coaxed into being a nominee. I don't know. I mean, he's in the past. Pritzker has said he really didn't have interest in running for president, and
I'll say that.
And from my perspective, he's a huge, big. I mean, not talking about his physical size. He's a big fish in Illinois. Why would he want to mess with that? He's got more power as a state governor right now than he would probably have as president. He'd just end up being a puppet.
But it's their egos, though. And remember, Emanuel had presidential aspirations until 16 shots and a cover-up pretty much delegated him to being ambassador of Japan, getting him as far away from us as they possibly could, even though it was failing upward. He's still living a nice life. He's definitely out of view.
Yeah, I would say Pritzker would be a reluctant nominee if they were pushing him.
Well, the article goes on to say this is in part due to his work in Illinois legalizing marijuana and raising the minimum wage and banning assault weapons, all while balancing the state's budget and plowing resources into infrastructure projects. Dare I say he actually sounds like what we traditionally identify as a Democrat, despite the fact he's also a billionaire. But it is perhaps
still
more.
A problem.
But it is perhaps more because of his willingness to use his enormous fortune. A Hyatt Hotel's heir worth over $3 billion and the country's richest office holder. I didn't know that. I guess he's richer than Trump. Wow, interesting.
That's not hard.
Well, not according to Trump, though. Trump's like, the richest man in the world, if you listen to him. And normally we don't, but too many people fall for his line of BS. He spent hundreds of millions on Democratic candidates and causes, including his own, in recent elections. His status is thus politically complicated as both crucial ally to Joe Biden and potential successor if things go awry. Is there any doubt also as to why the Democrat National Convention is coming to Chicago?
They're hoping that he'll be a big voice in there, and so it won't be a terrible idea if they decide they want to transition to running him instead of Melty Joe.
Maybe. You never know.
I mean,
behind the scenes.
I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of figure that one out.
This is not lost on the president, who paused in a room full of donors in June to thank Pritzker before unspooling his fundraising spiel. Pritzker, Biden confided to those in Chicago's J.W. Marriott, quote, did more in 2020 to help me get elected president of the United States than just about anybody in the country, besides my son. And that's a fact.
Damn it.
From Ukraine.
Damn it, JB.
Yeah. In the spring, Biden had invited Pritzker to join a clutch of influential and munificent string pullers.
Munificent?
Munificent? Is that a word?
I don't know. That doesn't sound like a word.
Munificent string pullers in D.C. for a secret tactics briefing / fundraiser ahead of his campaign launch. Then, after making his bid official, he called Pritzker again, this time as part of a core group of governors he hoped to rely on politically. The pair have since kept up a light dialogue about strategy, and Pritzker has open lines of communication with some in the West Wing's inner circle. One of Biden's first 2024 campaign hires, Quentin Fuchs, is a former Pritzker lieutenant. It wasn't just DeSantis' implosion, quote, "You used those words," he said, grinning, that cheered him the afternoon we spoke. The day before, he'd brokered a peace agreement with local union chiefs who committed not to strike at the Democratic convention next summer. We shared that story. And the Democratic National Committee agreed to contract union workers. The convention will be a Pritzker showcase before Biden chose Chicago as host. Pritzker personally assured him the city would have no trouble footing the bill of up to $100 million. It went unspoken that Pritzker isn't expected to pay for it personally, though he could if needed.
He should, because I don't want to freaking pay for this bullshit.
I think power in Illinois has shifted from or transitioned from the fifth floor to Springfield. I mean, in the past, it was always, no matter who was governor, it always seemed that the mayor of Chicago had more control over things, at least up through, I would say, Emanuel's departure. After that, Pritzker also got elected after Emanuel, but I think that has a lot to do with Pritzker's status as a billionaire, the influence that he has, as this article is laying out, and the connection he has with D.C. that Lightfoot didn't have, nor does Johnson. And, truthfully, in Johnson's case, he ran as a Democrat, but he's not a neoliberal, he's a progressive. Anyway, so where I leave off, this comfortable understanding between the two is relatively new. Last summer, when Biden was on much shakier political ground, Pritzker seemed to test the what-if waters. I remember this. He visited New Hampshire, traditionally decided the first presidential primary, and told an interviewer it's certainly possible Biden could face a primary challenger, though insisted he wouldn't go up against him. He was also letting his frustrations with Washington show. After the mass shooting at the Highland Park 4th of July parade last year, he drew headlines for saying, "If you're angry today, I'm here to tell you to be angry. I'm furious. I'm furious that yet more innocent lives were taken by gun violence." Democrats at the time had already been stewing that Biden hadn't said more about the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and when Biden visited Chicago shortly after the draft Supreme Court opinion of Dobbs leaked, Pritzker used their shared motorcade ride to McCormick Place to insist, "We need you to be out there. You can't have the vice president doing all the talking. You are the president of the United States. You have to every day go out and say, we are working to protect women, whatever we can." The governor recounted to me a few months later. Before long, he was described in the New York Times as Democrats' SOS candidate. Still, with Biden showing no signs of foregoing a run for re-election, Pritzker has grown punchier on the president's behalf. On stage at Davos, just feet from Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, Pritzker celebrated the president's record in spite of some reluctant members of his own party. So, certainly a team player, but I don't think that we can afford to take our eye off the possibility, Ed, as this article goes on longer and longer and longer. You can read it in the show notes, but I thought it was interesting, especially in light of what was just announced with the railway infrastructure that he's pushing for and all the other accomplishments that he's made, and how aggressive he seems to be in ways that other people would be afraid of with Biden, and the leadership in Biden's administration completely fumbling on Roe v. Wade and the gun issue, the gun violence issue.
They're still fumbling.
50
years they haven't codified Roe. They're still not doing it. They're not even pushing to try to do it.
And
they're not even reaching to the other side of the aisle to the Republicans who would actually support abortion rights.
That's one of the things
they do exist.
It's one of the things Obama pandered about, then conveniently forgot and said, well, it wasn't a priority once people elected him. And thank you, Kathy. Kathy identified munificence, a crowd bent on or engaged in lawless violence. Hey, Lioness Den has joined us. Nice to see you. Welcome back.
And he's flipping back off the hotspot over to the Xfinity Crabcast stream, which is still throttling me. Are you kidding?
Crap.
Oh, God. I shouldn't have to do this.
I know.
It's hold on. You know what it is?
Blowjob! Blowjob! Blowjob!
That's what it is.
Definitely.
All right. If you guys start losing me, let me know. I'm trying to maintain a decent upstream here, but I keep getting little signal warnings over here.
So we have an update moving on into our next story regarding the UPS strike. I guess the last holdout was in Louisville, or do you say Louisville?
I would say Louisville.
I say Louisville. You say Louisville.
Oh, hold on a second. You gave me a Slack link, and my Slack is not loading.
That's a previous story. Let's just run the most current link, which is after that.
Hold on. Oh, the DRB. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, it seems that the last holdout in the UPS negotiations has conceded and said, fine, we'll go along with it. And that was in Louisville. All right, I'll say Louisville. And
were they the last holdout?
From the article that you originally shared with me that's in Slack, they were.
I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing. I just saw an updated article. Okay.
I did. So let me continue with this. Okay. As reported by Chris Otts at WDRB, Louisville Union endorses UPS contract after concerns were addressed. Initial hesitation was related to wage increases, the union says. Teamsters Local 89 in Louisville no longer has concerns about the proposed contract with UPS and empathetically recommends its members vote in favor of the deal, the union said Thursday. Now, last week that we had shared an article or story regarding the fact that despite Teamsters having forged a deal, there were still holdouts in national shops across the country that weren't completely comfortable with what the Teamsters had negotiated. So I guess that continued forward up until this last holdout in Louisville, Local 89, and they have now said, fine, we're comfortable with this moving forward. Local 89 believes the 2023-2028 tentative agreement is the richest, most historic step forward for UPS members in our union's history, the union said in a statement posted to its website. It contains general wage increases, nearly double what any prior contract offered, and dramatically improves wages and working conditions across the board. The union's unequivocal endorsement of the contract comes 3 days after Local 89 cast the sole dissenting vote against the agreement during a closed-door meeting of 162 Teamster affiliates in D.C. At the time, Local 89's representatives couldn't be certain that the proposed contract would protect pay increases that UPS had already given in recent years in certain areas, including Louisville, the union said Thursday. Those pay increases, called market rate adjustments, or MRAs, represent higher than normal hourly rates that UPS chooses to pay because it would be hard to attract employees for less. For example, at the WorldPoint Global Air Hub in Louisville, UPS pays starting wages of $20 to $21 hourly, which is $4 to $5 more than required by the current Teamsters contract. On Monday, we had not gathered all the information we needed about whether UPS would take away MRAs and harm our members' earnings. Local 89 refrained from recommending the contract as we continued our research into MRAs. However, Local 89 can now say with confidence that its members will keep the higher pay rates they already enjoy, plus the raises called for in the new contract. UPS would be acting in bad faith and violating the National Master Agreement if the company attempted to reduce MRA wages in the future, Local 89 said. The statement comes as the 340,000 rank-and-file UPS employees across the country begin voting on whether to ratify the agreement. The voting period lasts through August 22nd. So it seems that UPS will not be shutting down. Seems.
We don't have full voting yet on this, do we? No. We still have to wait for.
Yeah, for the results up through the date that I mentioned. All right, so I knew Ed was going to love this story because we kind of touched upon this in our last program about people being concerned about all these migrants coming to Chicago doing cartel business, and I kind of laughed at it because I'm like, well, cartel business was happening here before migrants came to Chicago.
Yeah.
And this story speaks to that, as reported by the Chicago Sun-Times, of which I have to open up in archive and hope that I get past the paywall. Give me a moment here. You can bring the picture up with the headline that these two guys, they were two Chicago pizza delivery guys. Then they ran a Mexican drug cartel, the feds say. Come on, paste and go. Give me a moment, see if this link opens from archive. Yes, and it's good. The Guerreros Unidos cartel that authorities say brothers Adan and Mario Casarrubia Salgado led fueled Chicago's appetite for heroin. It's also blamed for the massacre of 43 students in Mexico. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's stop with the migrants are bringing cartel business to Chicago.
It was already here.
It was already here. Okay, and this is a fascinating story to that fact. Loaded with drugs, the buses left Iguala for southern Mexico every week, bound for Chicago. Secret compartments made detection at the border almost impossible. At warehouses in Aurora and Batavia, the heroin was unloaded, then distributed around Chicago and across the country. Over a year, starting in, no, not last October, July of 2013, the Guerreros Unidos Mexican drug cartel imported about 2,000 kilograms of heroin to Chicago. Authorities say millions of dollars were sent back to Mexico in the same compartments. When we came to the realization as to the volume of heroin that they were trafficking, the significance really hit home for us, former U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration agent Mark Giffray says. Practically every week, shipments were coming in on these buses. Compared to more powerful organized crime groups like the Sinaloa cartel, at the time led by now imprisoned Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera, Guerreros Unidos was just a fledgling gang. They were up-and-comers, says Jack Riley, who headed the agency's Chicago office and became the number 2 official with the DEA, helping make the case against El Chapo. Though smaller than the Sinaloa cartel, Guerreros Unidos helped fuel Chicago's growing appetite for heroin, bringing in quantities equal to tens of millions of doses on tour buses, authorities say. The GU's heroin operations in the region were operating at a very high capacity at the very time heroin-related emergency room treatments and overdose deaths were rapidly increasing here, Giffray says. What the cartel lacked in power and reputation, it compensated for in ingenuity. Its tactics included bribing Mexican police and military officials and installing hiding places on the buses so complex that when U.S. authorities eventually seized one and took it apart, they couldn't find any trace of the stash. You saw the French Connection, didn't you?
Many years ago.
That's how they got the drugs over to New York. They hid them in like the rocker panels of a French TV personality's car that was like put on a ship and brought to New York so you could drive around. They literally, in that movie, I remember with Hackman and Roy Scheider, just took the car apart. It's like, it's got to be in here. It's got to be in here. And ultimately, it was in the rocker panels underneath the door openings, and that's where all the heroin was stashed.
Yeah, or if you want another example, I think one of the Cheech and Chong movies, I think, was it Nice Dreams, where the actual van was the marijuana that they were
what was it? I didn't see.
Up in Smoke, maybe it was Up in Smoke.
Okay.
Where they were driving a van of marijuana, where all the parts of the van were the marijuana, so they couldn't figure out so. Eventually, it's been a while.
We have a hate watcher, Ed. I love hate watchers.
Oh, yeah?
LOL. You two are soy boy morons. Doesn't affect you until it does. Johnson is dumber than a box of your channel.
Oh, that's adorable.
And he goes on to share, yeah, our white privilege is showing, Tubbs. Our white privilege is showing.
Yeah, that's spoken like.
Yeah!
You don't watch this show much because we know we have privilege. We've actually talked about it on the last show. But that's fine.
That's all right. Make all the claims you want. People who watch our show regularly know what we're about. Rebel Cell. So Lioness Den is sharing information on her trip to Cancun. Interesting. Let's go into the chat. Let's take a brief detour from the story. They snatched her channel.
What an asshole.
Well, Lioness Den, would you like to come on our program sometime? We're always looking for. That was for Rebel Excel, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, she says so. They snatched her channel. So we always come back super quick, though. They will continue to elevate me. I hope they do. I've enjoyed watching your videos on your channel. So she also shares, thank you. Yeah, we got the bat signal up tonight. Pritzker signed 130 bills last Friday, or things of all sorts. Also, the signing of DACA or other immigrants or non-U.S. citizens to be bestowed U.S. badges, guns, and police uniforms takes the cake. Yeah, we talked about that last Tuesday. I don't know if you tuned in. I think it's ridiculous. Does that show my privilege, Rebel Excel? Does that show what a soy boy I am, Rebel Excel? That I actually had an issue with the fact that immigrants that aren't actually involved in the citizenship process for work permits, probably it's not a good idea to give them badges and recruit them as cops. I guess you missed that show. Lioness Den also shares whole child bill and the grandparents bill. And they can't drive while in telemeetings, and more laws signed. Also, where landlords cannot discriminate parentals in regards to their immigration status. So Lioness Den shares, I just got back from Tulum, Mexico last Friday. How fortuitous, since we are talking about a Mexican drug cartel story. Let's see here. Her thoughts on Mexico. I'm lived to come back and tell. It was absolutely majestic. The people were very nice and accommodating. The narrative that the U.S. spins. Yeah, true. Very true. The narrative that the U.S. spins about Mexico. Wait, Gamer, how could you block Rebel Excel? I turned off moderation privileges.
No, he just blocked him personally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like the haters and the knuckleheads to basically share their ignorance and keep it as a part of the record here. So, okay, I get what you're saying, Gamer for Life. You blocked him. Rebel Excel, sit down. I can't see past your hat. Thanks for the support, everybody. Yeah, are we? I mean, we do recognize we do have some privilege, Lioness Den.
Yeah.
But, we have stated it. And I think that's, I don't know, what encourages me to point out that there is white privilege. And a lot of people who have it don't realize they've got it and that their lives would be much different if they didn't have it. Yes, let's call Rebel Excel Rebel Incel. Love it. No, I think you're right, Miguel H. Lioness Den, who asked you to run for office? Someone in Mexico or someone here? They said I can start locally. God, there's a lot of good comments in here. I'm just catching up here. Oh, Miguel, hang on, everybody. I'm just trying to catch up here. Fred Edward shares, I sent you a DM that you should read after the live stream is fine at Chicago Corner. Thank you. On Twitter. Yeah, send it to us. Actually, Fred Edward, if you want to DM me at Twitter, it's at Chicago Corner TV. That's how I'll get a DM. Oh, isn't he adorable? I can't. You two are fucking retarded from your living rooms, of course. I'm pretty sure you all never grew up in the actual. Actually, no, I did. I grew up formatively in Wilmette through high school, and then I transitioned to the city, where I lived all my life until I moved to Los Angeles from the age of 22 forward, I'm a Chicagoan, not a Wilmette resident, rebel incel. Just so you know, keep the record straight.
Well, just to keep the record straight, I am from the suburbs. I've been living in Chicago for the last 20 years. And I don't think that makes my opinion any less valid.
Yeah. Rebel Cell, why don't you move to Palos Heights and join your candidate? Because I'm sure that's who Rebel Incel voted for. Anyway, let's get back to the article on the cartel here before we're distracted any further. By the way, Lioness Den, thanks for joining. And if you want to come on our channel anytime soon, I'd love to have you on as a guest moderator or panelist as we talk about some of these stories. Or if there's a story you want to bring to us from your part of the city, please let me know. So the article goes on to say the cartel's anonymity didn't last for long. In the fall of 2014, Guerreros Unidos became infamous around the world for perpetrating one of the most heinous crimes in modern Mexican history, the disappearance and pursued massacre of 43 college students in Iguala in the state of Guerrero. The remains of only 3 of the students have been found. Now, how does this bring us to Chicago? The cartel's reputed leaders, including brothers and former Chicago pizza delivery men, Adam Casarubias Salgado, known as El Tomate, and the late Mario, the little tomato or the tomato?
Just the tomato.
Adan Casarubias Salgado, known as the tomato, and the late Mario Casarubias Salgado, nicknamed El Sapo Guapo.
El Sapo Guapo.
Or the handsome toad, became suspects in the atrocity, which continues to shake the foundations of Mexican society. Let's scroll down to the forensic examiners in the white hazard suits. Even now, nearly 9 years later, the case remains shrouded in mystery. At the end of July, international investigators presented a final report that accused the Mexican army of stonewalling their investigations. To get a better sense of what happened and the role of Guerreros Unidos, the Chicago Sun-Times examined hundreds of pages of documents in the United States and Mexico, interviewed current and former law enforcement officers on both sides of the border, and visited key places where the cartel operated in Chicago and Mexico. A key piece of the story is how the DEA took down the cartel's lucrative Chicago operation that begins on the northwest side. During the money laundering investigation in August of 2013, Jeffrey detained a cartel courier paying $200,000. The courier, arrested in a parking lot, gave up details of the operation. The DEA raided his gray clapboard house on Winamac Avenue in Ravenswood and seized another $231,000 plus 12 kilograms of heroin and 9 kilos of cocaine. Agents also arrested the courier's boyfriend, an Army veteran, who went on to become the DEA's most important informant on the case. Quote, it became clear early on that this was not a money laundering cell. Jeffrey says this was a heroin trafficking cell that happened to launder some of its own money. The DEA launched a surveillance operation to tap cartel members' phones, intercepting text messages, and followed them to cash drops and back alley drug deals. Spanish translators helped decipher the codes used by the traffickers. A hierarchy emerged. The Casarubias brothers were leaders of the cartel in Mexico, authorities say, while delivering pizza part-time. Crazy.
I don't know if were they still at the same time. They don't actually say that, do they?
It's a long article.
Oh.
I'm scrolling down, but look, I don't have to go through the whole article. I just thought it was interesting in all of the pearl clutching about all these migrants coming to Chicago doing work for the cartels. We were there before migrants got bused to our city, and I don't think the migrants are a concern as far as cartel operations. This actually reminds me of several stories that Jose Requena would share when I first came on to Chicago Corner a couple years back.
Yeah, he used to do a show on Chicago Corner called Fear and Loathing in Chicago, I think, or Fear and Loathing in the Windy City. Yeah.
Who you calling bitch, motherfucker? You want to mix it up? Bitch moron? Cul-de-sac bitch moron. Fuck you.
Do yourself a favor and look up how to spell cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And then get back to us.
I love these big talkers in chats, live stream chats.
So.
Big keyboard warriors behind the keyboard that don't use their real names.
Oh, there it is. In the article, it says, though they were born in Mexico, Mario Casarrubias and Adan Casarrubias lived for years in Chicago. They worked at Mama Luna's Pizzeria on Fullerton Avenue in Belmont Cragen on the northwest side. Support local pizza, people. You know, these pizza places, you know, they still need your support, even though, you know, these jerk bags used to work delivery there. That doesn't make the pizza places bad.
No, it doesn't. But I thought it was kind of funny, the pizza connection, you know, giving
Yes. Well, I mean, I noticed that too. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's probably something we're going to talk about.
All right, moving on to our next story. This was interesting. In as much as it's linked to something that a lot of people feel should be a local, preserved as a landmark, and the fact it was bought by someone who has a controlling stake in Mad Asphalt. So the Damon Silos demolition is to get a public meeting. And this comes from Brett Chase at the Chicago Sun-Times. Michael Tadine Jr. and his family bought the silos from the state for $6.5 million in December. Residents will be able to weigh in during a public meeting on the planned demolition of the historic Damon silos on the southwest side. No date has been set, but officials say they expect to decide on the meeting soon. The new owner of the massive grain silos has applied for city approval to demolish the more than century-old structures and redevelop the riverfront land near 29th Street and Damon Avenue. Chicago businessman Michael Tadine Jr. and his family bought the silos from the state for $6.5 million in December. Tadine has said he will redevelop the 23 acres of industrial land, though he hasn't provided specifics. Tadine is also co-owner of Mad Asphalt on West Pershing across from McKinley Park. Tadine's contractor, Hennigan Wrecking, began the application process early this year under city rules for environmentally complex demolitions, as we saw in Pilsen, with the other environmental pollution issue that happened there. Was it? I'm not remembering it. It wasn't Mad Asphalt that was involved in the destruction of that demolition to make room for. Can you look that up?
Oh, you're making me use my brain. Damn it.
No, I'm not making you use your brain. I'm making you use Google. A series of steps are taken to assess potential health risks. The beefed up process was put in place. Okay, here we go. Actually, it's in the article. After a badly botched implosion of almost 400-foot chimney at the old Crawford coal power plant in Little Village that left the community covered in dust in 2020. As an environmentally complex demolition, no demolition permit applications will be approved until a community meeting takes place. Oh, they're finally doing shit right, the city's public health department said in a statement to the Sun-Times. We are working with community partners and local elected officials to plan for a meeting likely to be held in the coming weeks. Late last year, neighborhood environmental and preservationist groups all appealed to Governor J.B. Pritzker to reconsider the sale of the property to Tadine, saying residents should be able to provide feedback for new uses for the silos and the surrounding property. That's interesting. I wonder, short of demolition and complete redevelopment of the land. I mean, look, those silos are kind of iconic as far as that part of town, not just because they've been used as background in some movies, but it's actually, they've actually like added to the character of the neighborhood, that industrial stretch down there. Some preservationists said the structures featured in the 2014 movie Transformers: Age of Extinction can be repurposed for public art, climbing, that's cool, or as a part of a park or concert venue. An affiliate of Blue Star Properties, which redeveloped the former Morton Salt Warehouse into the Salt Shed concert venue on North Elston Avenue, was one of the losing bidders for the silos. The Damon silos were once owned by a railroad, but had been property of the state since 1928. They have not operated for decades. In 2005, Illinois Transportation Department transferred the property to another state agency for the purpose of selling the silos and land. Mad Asphalt is a city contractor, and the plant has been a target of hundreds of resident complaints since opening in 2018. Under new city rules, asphalt plants will add more pollution protection. Matt has settled with the city over alleged violations. You know, this guy Tadine claims he's going to redevelop it as something more community functioning, to be more community serving, but I wonder, how do you hold him to that? given their previous history with Mad Asphalt, environmentally polluting other residential communities. He said he will redevelop the 23 acres of industrial land, though he hasn't provided specifics. Well, as a co-owner of Mad Asphalt, I'm glad that the people in the community there are demanding some answers, or that there's a public meeting in regards to, I guess, the environmental impact of a demolition, or what else is going to go there that could potentially impact the community. Oh, I see Rebel Incel is back.
Seems to be watching us on a delay.
Yeah. Is there any comments in Rockfin tonight that are worth sharing?
Let me take a look and see. Oh, we actually had a couple. Well, Miguel says hi. I guess he's watching us on both streams. Laura Baza's checking in. Says hi. Was agreeing with us on something. Thinks everyone should get help, and is confirming that Ray Epps was that guy.
Rebel Incel. What's a bish? I don't hate. I'm just not a bitch-ass white boy that pretends to grow up in the city and grown up on the gates, but has an opinion. Fuck off. No, Rebel Incel, you fuck off. You come at me, bro. Come at me, bro.
I don't know what the hell. I don't know what the point is of you.
Something's triggering him tonight. Something's triggering him. Maybe he doesn't have
what's bothering you.
Yeah, he doesn't have a show to share his opinions.
What exactly? What's your issue? Because I'm still failing to understand what your problem is.
We're not supposed to have an opinion because we're white boys from the suburbs, Ed, who now live in the city and have spent most of our adult lives in the city. Because we came from suburban backgrounds in the first 20 years of our lives, in the last 37 years of my life, I'm not supposed to have an opinion on living in Chicago. That's what Rebel Incel is complaining about.
I can accept the fact that, I don't have the lived experience of growing up in the city of Chicago and dealing with life there in my youth. Okay. But having said that, I've lived here for 20 years. Okay. I've talked and lived with people who have lived here, and I have perspective. I can see what's going on in the city and have an opinion. And my opinions are valid. You don't think so? That's your opinion.
Everyone's opinion is valid. You disagree with us, Rebel Incel? That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, but don't sit here and carry on like a little bitch that we don't have a right to share our opinions and our observations and our commentary and our analysis on the city we live in now. That I've lived, so I've lived for the past 27 years, barring the 10 years I went to Los Angeles. But since I got back in 2007, I've lived in the city. Prior to my departure in 1996, I lived in the city. So go fuck yourself.
While spending every other comment insulting us, now you're saying you don't hate.
Yeah, he has love for everybody.
Okay, all right.
Whatever.
Says he doesn't want people to be brainwashed. Fine. I don't want people to be brainwashed either. You have a different perspective, then correct us. You want to be, vague in your comments in the live chat about it. I got nothing for you. Have a conversation.
This is the best part of the show, engagement with our audience. I love engaging with our audience. They're part of the program. And you know what's interesting too to me? We've had people in our live chat that we've disagreed with in the past that have disagreed with us, and it's always been very respectful. Even when I vehemently disagree with some stuff, have I ever attacked anybody? I don't think I have. I mean, there have been some things that have triggered me, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to go there because this person clearly believes what they believe for a reason, and I'm actually curious to know why they feel that way. And we've engaged and had a nice conversation back and forth. Anytime we get a troll like this that comes in, guns blazing, and then, insults us and then says, oh, I don't hate, I have love for everybody, you're brainwashing people. I'm sorry, Rebel Incel, I can't take you seriously because of the way you came in. That's simple.
Yeah, and straightforward. Brainwashing people on what? What exactly is your issue? That somebody said something about immigration that rubbed you the wrong way? I mean, half of the stuff that we're basically reading articles and commenting on other people's takes on stuff, and then we're giving our own takes. If there's more than that needs to be said, more information that you think is important, by all means, contribute that into the live chat. Give us more information.
Yeah, and let's have a discussion about it. Instead of barraging in here with your insults, we're two white boy bitches from the suburbs. That's not going to get you. That's not going to get you any benefit of the doubt in engaging in an actual constructive conversation or debate with each other. No, I don't. Because Kathy, why do I stoop to the testosterone level? Block him? No, I'm not. I'm not interested in blocking people. He's got a free voice to share what an idiot he is. That's why I don't.
Fair, I think.
And here's the other thing, Kathy.
We should bring in the sex bots, though.
Yeah, I don't back down from people who try to intimidate or bully me. That's why, Kathy. And I would think that you would probably feel the same way if someone decided to insult you. This is mine and Ed's living room, and we open it up Tuesdays and Fridays to share stories, to share commentary, to share analysis, to talk with everybody. You're all guests, and you're great guests, and we love having you here. But when someone decides to barge in and insult us and carry on that way, I don't really feel any obligation to be nice to them. There have been people who've disagreed with us in the past diplomatically, and it's like, fine, let's have a conversation. That's cool. But Kathy, I don't do well with bullies who come in and decide to try to intimidate and insult. I just don't.
Yeah, personally, I just don't have the energy to deal with people who aren't dealing in good faith. And so I don't like to waste a whole lot of time and energy on them. So at this point, I'm like, unless they have something worth contributing and actually talking about, I'd rather just move on with the show, because they're wasting everyone's time.
They are, but I'm also entertained by it. That anybody would hate watch a program and basically use it as an opportunity to get attention for themselves. I think that's what it kind of comes down to. And I think that's what's funny about it. So let's move into the next story in regards to the neighbors. Here's our inspirational stuff at the end of the show that we'd like to share. Although it hasn't been all bad news, it's just been interesting assessing Brandon Johnson's almost first 100 days, Pritzker's influence, the hypocrisy between the Democratic and Republican parties with the national Trump story. Meanwhile, coming back to local news, as reported by Block Club Chicago and Alex V. Hernandez, neighbors donate $9,000 in 24 hours to help Albany Park Elotero buy a new cart. Joaquin Garcia Jimenez's cart was stolen last month, hours before Block Club published a story about his plight, and a fundraiser to help him. The donations poured in. Good on you, Chicago. A popular Northwest Side Elotero. How am I pronouncing that right, Ed?
An elotero sells elotes, which are corn on the cob with all those wonderful Mexican seasonings on there, which is usually like grated cheese and tahine and other types of things. It's a delicacy in the city for sure.
What he said. Elotero is thanking supporters who donated more than $9,500 and counting to help him after his food cart was stolen last month. Joaquin Garcia Jimenez has sold snacks around the Albany Park and North Park neighborhoods for more than 20 years. He's a fixture around Volta Elementary at 4950 North Avers Avenue, where neighbors say kids wait by his cart until their parents pick them up. Last month, someone stole his food cart from where he stored near his home. Neighbors helped Garcia Jimenez set up a GoFundMe campaign with a goal of $8,000 to cover the cost of a new cart before the start of the school year. As of Wednesday, the GoFundMe had raised $264. But by 8 a.m. Friday morning, the day after Block Club published a story about Garcia Jimenez's plight and the fundraiser to help him, the campaign had blown past its goal, with fans donating $9,050. I think we need to get a story trending on Block Club Chicago, Ed, for Chicago Corner.
Yeah. Well, I don't have an elote cart to get stolen though, so I'm gonna have to figure. And I don't want to come up with a fake story because that wouldn't be cool. But I can tell people, I'm deeply in debt, and it would be really cool if we start a GoFundMe to just help me pay off my credit card so I can help Chicago Corner stay a little more funded and supported.
By the way, Ed, I did hear back from someone I had connected with you regarding a financial situation. You should reach back out to them. And
okay,
they're very serious, and they actually texted me and asked me like,
okay,
from the other day. So follow up on that. I think it might be fruitful.
Well,
Art shares, whoever did this will literally get sent to hell upon their death. We can only hope so. Art. The day my story was published on your Block Club Chicago. 3 hours later, the total had reached 9,500.
3 hours.
3 hours later. The day my story was published on your Block Club Chicago, I had so many donations come in, and other newsrooms like Telemundo and ABC7 reached out trying to get a hold of me about this. Garcia Jimenez said in Spanish. Thanks to God, everything has worked out so nicely, and I'm happy. It's beautiful, and I'm so thankful to everyone who donated. Now that he's surpassed his fundraising goal, Garcia Jimenez said he's looking to buy a used mail truck that he could convert into a beefed-up version of his food cart, he said. I'm getting too old to be walking around pushing a cart in the cold during the winter or when it's raining hard. Thanks to people's generosity, my community helping, I want to buy a small little mail truck where I can be inside and still selling my elotes and other food in bad weather. Garcia Jimenez.
Yeah.
That's my idea that I'm talking through with the people who helped me set up the GoFundMe. Nothing big or new or anything, just something for me to sell elotes from. Well, bless his heart.
Yeah, someone get him an elote mobile. Or probably a repurposed ice cream truck would probably work better for him, I would think, because it would have at least have the refrigeration units he's probably going to need, along with, and then he could retrofit the other side for, heating or whatever.
And he can work all year round in every season then.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of an elote mobile.
Maybe you could actually be decorated, or there could be something on there that'll make it stand out, isn't it? I don't know. Like we've seen the Oscar Mayer Wiener mobile. Maybe they can do something with this elote mobile and make it look like the foodies.
Yes, they could totally. Yes, there's plenty of people in the city who could totally trick that thing out. Super customizations. That would be a hell of a news story.
Yeah. Can you get the next Block Club story up?
Yeah.
Moving on to other news this week, as also reported by Block Club Chicago, or as Lioness Den calls them, Black Club Chicago. Blick Club?
I thought that was the tribe.
Wait, Block Club Chicago. Oh, I thought she wrote Black Club.
Blick Club?
Blick Club. I don't have my glasses on. Okay, I love Blick Club Chicago.
Why would you call? I don't get it.
I don't know. I read the wrong way, but
unless
it was the reference.
Unless she mistyped.
She may have mistyped. So Arturo shares, in the future, the country's economy will be getting daily donations from each other. There'll be an app you can ask for 100 likes so you could buy a soda via credits. Look, we're seeing this happen with healthcare. People who can't afford insurance having to turn to GoFundMe to stay alive. It's obscene seeing this happen. Yeah, she meant Block Club. Okay, we know what you meant.
Okay. Look, people, we're just a couple of schlubs streaming out of our homes, and that doesn't mean that the things we have to say aren't important, but also we like to have fun with words.
They're not important.
And,
it's just
and we try to keep things light sometimes, just because, a lot of the stories we sometimes have to cover are so dark. So,
but here's a great transition. If we were to go with my original read, speaking of Black Club Chicago, Block Club Chicago.
No. Do that one again.
It's an African American story.
No, hold on. No.
Yes. Block Club Chicago reports through Jamie Nesbitt Golden, the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley National Monument was unveiled at Bronzeville Church. Robert's Temple Church of God in Christ, which hosted Emmett Till's funeral in 1955, is one of 3 sites being preserved to honor Till's life and legacy. There was a movie that came out, I think it was late last year. It came and went, because I remember we saw the trailer for it when we saw Punch 9 for Harold Washington. I got to see if that's on streaming. there was a historical biopic on the Emmett Till story. From Grand Boulevard, activists and politicians who lobbied the federal government to preserve the church that hosted Emmett Till's funeral were on hand Tuesday as the building was introduced as a national monument. National and local officials gathered at Roberts Temple Church of God in Christ, 4021 South State Street, to unveil a temporary sign designating the church as one part of a 3-site national monument to honor Till's life and his mother, Mamie Till Mobley's effort to keep his legacy alive. The permanent sign is forthcoming, officials said.
The
movie is his mother still alive? Or maybe they're talking about her efforts, and this is post her efforts of finally.
I'll have to follow. I'll have to look and see. But the story, I think she passed. But the movie was released in January 6th of 2023 in the UK. Okay, I'm not sure why, but there's a trailer, which I think is the one that we saw when we were watching Punch 9.
The historic church is well known as the site of Till's homegoing after white supremacists lynched the 14-year-old in Mississippi, an act many consider the catalyst for the civil rights movement. 2 sites in Mississippi, Graball Landing near Glendora, where Till's body was discovered after being dumped in the Tallahatchie River, and the courthouse in Summer, where a jury of white men acquitted Till's killers. Why are they saying kill? Let's call them murderers. Okay, where a jury of white men acquitted Till's murderers, not killers. Also are included in the monument. President Joe Biden signed the proclamation for the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley National Monument last week on what would have been Till's 82nd birth. Okay, so yeah, his mom has passed. He would have been 82. Dozens of dignitaries, including Governor J.B. Pritzker, Mayor Brandon Johnson, former Congressman Bobby Brush, Senators Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, and U.S. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland were on hand for a special program at the church to mark the occasion, along with members of the Till family. Haaland visited the church in October of 2022, joining Rush, Durbin, and Representative Danny Davis for a community conversation about the designation. In March of 2021, Durbin and Duckworth introduced a bill that would have Roberts Temple declared a National Historic Site. Each piece of this monument, from here in Chicago to Tallahatchie County in Mississippi, tells a pivotal story in our country's fight for the justice that every single American deserves to have. Haaland said, "The story is so painful, but it must be told. That's what Mamie Till Mobley wanted. She wanted this nation to be unable to look away. Today we honor her strength and courage because we would not be here without it." Relatives did not offer comment at the program. Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr., Till's cousin and the last living person who witnessed Till's kidnapping, previously said the National Monument makes certain that Emmett Till's life and legacy, along with his mother Mamie Till Mobley's social action and impact, will live on and be used to inspire others to create a more just and equitable society. Can you scroll down to the front of the building? While the 101-year-old building received city landmark designation in 2006, the push to receive national landmark status has been a labor of love for many local stakeholders. The building has been beset by structural issues, so church leaders had to fundraise to help pay for repairs. The National Monument designation will give the 3 sites access to federal resources for upkeep, renovations, and staffing, officials said. Rush thanked Biden and Haaland, among others, for working so diligently to get Roberts Temple the federal recognition and protection it richly deserved. Maybe Till Mobley listened to the voice of the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Ghost told her, "Keep that casket open. I thank God for the power of the open casket," Rush said. I'm sorry, I missed a paragraph. Rush said Till Mobley's faithful decision to have an open casket funeral, laying bare the country's racism and brutality, helped spur the passage of the Civil Rights Act, the Till anti-lynching bill, and the election of the first Black president in Barack Obama. The designation is part of a larger, that Obama benefited from it. I'm not that thrilled about, but whatever. This is bigger than Barack Obama, sorry to say. And the fact that
it's bigger than Biden as well.
It's bigger than everybody.
And honestly, it's it's somewhat offensive that Biden isn't even involved with this.
Well, here's my absolutely there is relevance to referencing the passage of the Civil Rights Act as being impacted by this, okay? And the Till anti-lynching bill. I don't think there's really I don't understand where there was room in this article to claim this had anything to do with the election of the first Black president, Barack Obama. Because frankly, Barack Obama hasn't done. Speaking as the white person of privilege that I am, I don't get a sense that Barack Obama has done as much for his community as he should have done. But that's just my opinion as a privileged white guy. So I'm not going to make any apologies for it. That's my perception on what I see. The designation is part of a larger effort to establish Bronzeville as a national heritage area, with Biden signing the Bronzeville Black Metropolis National Heritage Area Act into law. Roberts Temple stands to receive access to even more federal resources. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of us who've been in the trenches for this work in terms of protecting and preserving the heritage and history, the real narratives around this, we all know each other because we've all been pushing for advocacy, for recognition of those who paid the cost. Williams said, this is a celebration for everyone who said, I'm not going to change the truth to satisfy what might be comfortable for someone else. They pushed and persevered and made certain that the narrative was told with the truth, even though it might have been ugly. Today is really a culmination of a good number of successes. We had a black lieutenant governor speak, 3 black congresspeople spoke, our black mayor, and the secretary of the Department of the Interior, Native American. Although a lot of progress has been made, we know that the struggle continues. We're grateful to be a part of this, Adams said. So I think that was very important and relevant. Let's go back to the live chat.
The Till movie was in theaters this past October. There is still a trailer if you want to watch it. But, it's the one that we got to see when we watched Punch 9.
Okay.
For Harold Washington.
Lioness Den shares she goes to the Emmett Till house all the time. Interesting. Also, Emmett Till's father was also executed, Louis Till, in France, accused of the same thing. Wow. While on active duty in France, he was put on trial, found guilty, and executed in France.
And
I don't disbelieve what you're saying, Linus. Interesting. All right, and our last story, not really a story, a promotion for a friend of mine. I'd like to share tomorrow night. I'm planning on going because I haven't seen my friend Steve in years. And Steve is a guitarist, and he and his band are playing at Sidebar. Steve is
that's at Fitzgerald's in Berwyn, yes?
Yeah. Okay. Steve is a rockabilly musician, and he's performing tomorrow night at Fitzgerald's.
Berwyn.
Saturday night in the Sidebar with the Scovilles. It starts at, let's see where we're at here. It starts at, why isn't the invitation in? I've got it open on this end, but no tickets.
Tomorrow at 9 p.m.
9 p.m. Thank you. Oh, I got to click to see more. That's why. Yeah, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. 21 plus, minors admitted with Guardian. Fitzgerald Sidebar prevents the Scovilles. Seen here free show. Click book now to RSVP for guaranteed entry. Grab dinner before the show at Baby Gold Barbecue. Parking, there's rather limited street parking in the area. We recommend arriving by rideshare, bicycle, or rickshaw. There's a link in the show notes below for the Facebook invitation. And I would really encourage people to go out because Steve's a great musician. And we had the pandemic. I lost track of Steve and his wonderful, lovely, lifelong friend, Chanda, who I've known since high school. They live in Berwyn, and we've been friends forever. Unfortunately, the pandemic slowed things down. Steve sent me this invitation to his show, and I'm like, can I promote this on Chicago Corner? Is it open to the public? He said, yeah. So there you go. Saturday night in the Sidebar with the Scovilles at Fitzgerald's. And what's the address for Fitzgerald's is
6615 West Roosevelt Road in Berwyn.
Thank you. So head on out and see the show, everybody. Let's scroll back up, take a quick last look at Steve.
Yeah.
From a previous performance. And there you go. I hope if anyone else comes out and you see me there, let me know you watch Chicago Corner. What are you doing now? Do you want to go out tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night?
Yeah. I'm going to go to the show.
How much are tickets?
It's free.
Oh, it's free.
Yeah.
Free is a good price.
Yeah.
I mean,
free entry.
It's been a while since I've been to Fitzgerald's too. Last time I was there was for one of the American music festivals, and that was many, many years ago. Berwyn's a good time.
I'm double check. I think it's free. I'm clicking the ticket link. I think they're just asking people to get tickets to keep track of who's there. Yeah, free. But you do need to RSVP. 9:00 p.m. Doors open at 7:30. Fitzgerald Sidebar, 6615 West Roosevelt Road. Actually, let's bring this. I'm going to share a link with you in the private chat. Ed, can you bring this up?
Hold on. I'm not seeing. Oh, here we go. Oh, the ticket web thing.
Yeah,
I put it up in the thing already.
But let's bring this up on screen.
Oh, yeah.
And I just saw. I didn't realize you shared the link for the Emmett Till trailer. Yeah, we could watch it. We could wrap up the show with that after we finish with the ticket web link for the Scovilles tomorrow night. All right, I'll let you bring up the Emmett Till trailer since it'll probably play smoother on your end.
Okay, can do. So that's the address for the ticketweb.com link. But again, you can go to the show notes and click on the invite to also get to that thing if you're thinking of joining us in Berwyn. Which is always interesting. There's a good pizza joint out there too. I can't remember the name of it.
All right, here's the trailer for the Emmett Till film we were talking about. It's called Till. Oh, I wonder if we're going to get copy. Well, I don't care.
It's a trailer.
Well, dude, it got nailed for everything, and I'll appeal it, and then it'll drop in 30 days. So I'm already going to get a strike for that little Bullworth clip we played earlier. So let's go ahead and run the trailer.
Okay, fair use.
This was my boy, Emmett Till. I got a letter today from Auntie Lizzie. She said Bo's been working the fields. I can't imagine. Oh, he just doesn't understand how different things are in Mississippi. Are you listening?
Yes.
Be small down there.
Like this?
Emmett never thought anything would happen to him.
Eat the mommy, Simmy!
Ow! He just wanted to go on vacation and have fun with his cousins. But if my son could just get his feet back onto the Chicago soil, he'd be one heck of a kid. I don't know.
It's my understanding this bitch who accused him of what he didn't do, I think she just passed away like this year. She was never held accountable, never charged for what led to this boy's lynching with her false allegations, racist false allegations. Sorry, I'm not, I have no filter with people that do this kind of shit. As we get older, Ed, it's just, I'm surprised. I'm like losing my ability to be more kind about this is a horrible thing that happened, what this woman did. Just horrible. It led to this kid's lynching. And everyone who was involved was acquitted. It was a murder. And she lived a long life into her old age and was able, I guess, to live with herself. The woman who accused him of insulting her is a white woman. Anyway, go ahead, let it play. I'm sorry.
I don't know why I said that.
I want to talk to you about that boy.
They've come for you. It's hard to describe what a mother knows. The first thing I noticed when I became a mother was that my hands were busy all the time. My hand knew him with my eyes closed, just like I know his laughter in a crowded room. It's the same thing when you know all of someone. This was my boy, Emmett Till.
the body of Emmett Lewis Till has been found dead.
Can I at least just fix him up a bit?
No, they have to see it for themselves.
You tell me, Mamie, how is risking your life gonna help them?
Those pictures of your son change people's lives.
I can't look, baby. We have to.
The lynching of my son has shown me that what happens to any of us, anywhere in the world, had better be the business of us all.
Gotta look for it on streaming now since it's out of theaters.
Yeah, but it can be found. I'm sure MGM has found a way to make it available.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's our Friday, August 4th Chicago Corner program, barring all of the interruptions from the Peanut Gallery. Hate watchers. Any other comments on Rockbin worth sharing?
Yeah, nope. No more comments on Rockfin. But
Okay.
you know, haters, thanks for watching.
Yeah, we love
Hit
it.
the like button on your way out.
And subscribe if you haven't
And
already.
subscribe. You know, come back and hate us again.
We enjoy it. What was it? Who was the president? Oh, FDR, who was accused of being a class traitor, accused of being so many things. He said something like he welcomes their hatred. He
I
doesn't
welcome
care.
your hatred.
Yeah. We welcome your hatred. Actually, we'd rather have a nice conversation with you, but just don't barrel in here and be a jerk.
Yeah. Or at least support us when you're doing it, you know? Head over to patreon.com/Chicago Corner. Be a Patreon supporter and hater. So you'll be promoting.
We need to work that into a promo. Be a Chicago Corner supporter or hater. Maybe I should put that on a mug.
Yes, with your financial support, we'll keep making programs that you're capable of logging in and hating on forever.
Yes, Fred Edward, I will be checking my my DMs, so I'll get back to you as soon as we're done with the show. Lioness Den, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And again, DM me if you want to come on. It'd be nice to have you on as a guest panelist, commentator. Bring a story you want to share. Get on camera so we can see your smiling face. And I will let Natalie Williams have the last word on that. Petty minds thrive on hatred.
Yep,
I like that. All right, everybody. It's Lollapalooza this weekend. I'm like, I don't need to talk about Lollapalooza. Everybody knows about it. But if you're going out to Lollapalooza this weekend, make sure to be careful. I'll save that for my closing. Ed, as always, thanks a lot. And we will be back on Tuesday when Ed captains the ship. Oh, looks like Ed wants to share something before we leave.
Yes, if you're ever having trouble finding us or want to get any updates or supporting links or anything, you can head over to ChicagoCornerTV.com. And as you can see on the top, we've added Oreo to the roster at the top because obviously
he earned it with his constant interruptions and directions for how we do the broadcast.
Yeah, and so you can, obviously you can get your Brandon Bingo card there if you haven't picked one up yet, so you can start checking off the boxes of things that maybe he's done and maybe he hasn't done yet. We got all our social media stuff here, all our different links for Twitter, Rockfin, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and our Odyssey archive, which I hope is still working. If you feel inclined, you can also hit the Patreon button to get to our Patreon page and decide if you want to be a supporter. And if you are a Patreon supporter who is donating $5 a month or more, you have the opportunity to be a guest on our program if you want to. So that's a cool perk. You can watch the show right on the website if you need to. If you can't find it on anywhere else, we'll try to find a way to make sure that it's always streaming from the website. And it's got our Twitter thing. And we have a poll asking you what platform you're watching us on. There's our useful links, which has things like reporting potholes and other things like support, things like donating to the night ministry or donating to a food bank or finding mutual aid. And we have an announcement about our all new merch store,
which is also linked in our YouTube channel now. People should be able to see buttons underneath the program, either on this show or on our homepage, where they can see some of our selected items along with all the items. Click through and then you can get to the regular store. These are our top 2 items, though.
And here's the store with, yes, our top 2 items, which, you know, Oreo on a mug. That's probably the best item in the store. But there's more. You got Laser Eye Jerry on. He's on.
That's not me. That's my doppelganger, Laser Eye Jerry. That's not me.
Yeah. You got Laser Eye Jerry's doppelganger
that infiltrated the chat a couple weeks back.
And I think Laser Eye Oreo's on the other side of that. We just added the Oreo style Stream Cats t-shirt and mug. And you can get those on Light and Dark Garments and also pint glasses. That's pretty cool. And finally, Chuck snuck this one into the merch store. I still haven't figured out how to get it out of there, but I guess order them while they're still in there. Chuck's Intergalactic Pizza Delivery, featuring the finest pizzas from planet Earth, as seen on Chicago Corner.
Nicely added. That's it.
Yeah.
Pick up some fun merch, ladies and gentlemen. Help promote the show. Show your support. Have fun. Ed, as always, thanks again for joining tonight and providing commentary. And Ed will be captaining the Chicago Corner ship next Tuesday.
Yes.
In the meantime, everybody, as you go into the weekend, especially with Lollapalooza, please make sure to watch out, be careful, stay safe, be vigilant, take care of each other, watch out, and remember, if it's happening on the streets, as always, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. I wish you all a safe weekend, and we will see you again next Tuesday. Good night, everybody. Stay safe, Chicago.
Don't let me find you out here again.
We're trying to help you.
I don't need help.
What gives you the right? What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. If you would like to be a guest on Chicago Corner, please email our host, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv.